Welcome to the RantCast podcast. Yeah. Welcome to the RantCast. All right, let's get some of these screens out of the way here. All right, let me just switch over my screen here. Yeah, welcome to the RantCast. Tonight is just your old pal Kurgan. TheStrangeBus had a family emergency. Fully understandable. He won't be here most likely at all tonight. But of course, we wish him and his family well, and we'll have to catch him the next time. But anyway, yeah, so if you are watching us on YouTube, it is not live. If you're watching on Twitch, that's twitch.tv/TheRantCastPodcast. Not the RantCast anymore, it's the RantCast Podcast. There are many other RantCasts out there. This is the one you're looking for tonight, where we talk about games, entertainment, HeroQuest, Star Wars, whatever. And we get passionate about it. Now let me just switch over my screen here. So yeah, if you want to jump into Discord and Quest Talk, you can see I'm there right now. Still got my Santa hat going. Right now the weather is such that I look outside, it looks like Christmas to me. I'm not changing a thing. So anyway, I hope you're doing well where you are. Today we're talking about quests. Now, many types of quests. This is episode 3 of the RantCast podcast. We've got HeroQuest, but now more recently we've also got OrcQuest, and we've got HeroScape, and there's TseuQuest, which used to be, you may have seen the graphic I had there a moment ago, the 25th anniversary of HeroQuest. So I got a bunch of topics to talk about today, and since I don't have TheStrangeBus here, it's going to be a lot more difficult. I know he's done the show without me before, but we do what we can. So my thought would be we'll probably shelve one of our topics here. Originally, we were going to talk about the anticipated games of 2023. Of course, here we are, almost the end of January, and just so many games are coming out. I was looking through the list the other night, and honestly, there weren't a lot that I was that excited about, or couldn't bring myself to get excited about. A lot of sequels, a lot of remakes, rehashes, a lot of stuff on the newer consoles, a lot of games ruined by microtransactions and other nonsense. A lot of games that were in development hell that are coming out, and I don't know. I probably just need to do some more research on those, but that's why I like to have other people on the show, because we can, bring up like games that we like and say, oh, yeah, this game that I liked, it's coming back, or there's a sequel or a remake or a prequel, or it's similar to some other game. Um, you can say innovation is dead. Maybe it is. But I'm thinking back to the classic days of gaming. And really, you'd have a successful game like Pac-Man or Pong or Space Invaders, and you'd have a million games that would like copy off of it. And some of them were just blatant rip-offs, and some of them were literal, actual like bootlegs and stuff. But then you also had games where they would take the formula of the first one and they would try to improve upon it. So you get like little improvements here and there. So okay, you get a Galaga, you get a Galaxian, you get a Phoenix, you get all these different, and it's like, oh, okay, you get a Street Fighter 2, and then you get like King of Fighters. You would start to get, or Mortal Kombat, you get tweaks and changes, and there was competition. And occasionally you would get a breakout game. A lot of games that would, well, there was a game called Breakout. You get games that were, oh, hey, Ribby. Yeah, you get games that were just totally innovative, and a lot of them would flop, but some of them would really catch on and just totally change the industry. So, Ribby, welcome to the RantCast podcast. So, as you can see at the bottom there, look at your screen right now on Twitch. Discord.gg/2 uppercase R9 lowercase p uppercase E uppercase P 4 lowercase c T Y. That's our Discord. So go to the Discord, and there's a voice channel called Quest Talk. There's General Talk and there's Quest Talk. If you click on that, if you've got a microphone, you can talk to us live. So we'll be able to hear each other. People on Twitch will be able to hear us. So that's what I'm talking about there. And as far as video goes, since it's just me right now, I think I'm just going to throw up another screen. I'm not going to throw up. I'm going to throw up another screen, and we're going to just capture. Let's see. And yeah, shout out to, of course, Karl Casey at White Bat Audio for the awesome music, as always. We're just going to grab some video here. We'll just shrink that down. Actually, I'll just cover my own face up here with it. Actually, you know what? We can just do a full screen. That's okay. Got my little playlist here. And we're going to take a look at some of these videos. So the first thing I wanted to show is TseuQuest. And what do I mean by TseuQuest? It's the word quest spelled backwards and forwards. And the reason that was done, so let's backtrack a little bit. Now, I don't have the complete history because I'm not fluent in Spanish. But you have this, I'm going to just flip over to this video here. And yes, it's got subtitles. So this is YouTube, of course. And I don't want to get copyright struck. But anyway, yeah, so you had this this plan by this guy in Spain and his team. It was GameZone Miniatures. So founded in 2002, according to their website. And they make and sell miniatures, of course, for like tabletop fantasy gaming. And they were going to make this 25th anniversary HeroQuest. It was going to be a remake of the board game with different gameplay mechanics, but it was going to greatly expand upon the original game, use modern aesthetic for the artwork, and it had this huge box, as you can see. And that logo that you see before you, that's been used in a lot of like fan-based products because everybody thought for a while, 2013, 2014, that this was going to be the new HeroQuest. And so there was already a buzz online. So long before Hasbro put their plan into action and grabbed up the trademark or copyright, which I guess apparently had lapsed, or there was some ambiguity about it. I'm not a legal scholar. But anyway, Chaosium was using the term HeroQuest for a while in their Gloranthia RPG, which had nothing to do with the original HeroQuest. But apparently people were thinking this is the real HeroQuest, this game here. And it went through development hell, and after Hasbro, through their subsidiary Avalon Hill, revived HeroQuest in 2020 with the infamous or famous pledge drive they did online. Not a Kickstarter, but a pledge drive through Hasbro Pulse. Once that happened, this project was pretty much doomed as far as we could tell. Now, they did change the name of the product, which that's been kind of the pattern for a lot of these fan or indie or spin-off or parody like games using HeroQuest as a base or inspiration. They would just change the name, change some of the design aesthetic, and they could sell their product. So you've got products like Sunday Quest on Amazon, which is just like a booklet of quests that some fans made on Facebook. I think it's mostly the work of one person though. But anyway, like that stuff is allowed. They're not going to get sued into the ground by Hasbro for making that stuff. Now I know we just finished talking a lot about the controversy with Dungeons and Dragons. The latest update that I've heard, because I haven't focused on it so much after that avalanche of news, and we did our two streams. We did the one with TheStrangeBus and the one with iKarith. Really long. We talked, long and hard about it. A lot of passionate D&D fans were very upset with Hasbro for what they perceived to be as clamping down on creativity, destroying competition, stifling all this stuff, and treating the fans like video game fans are being treated, with like microtransactions and all this nonsense and very arbitrary rules about what's considered offensive and the right to censor and all this stuff. So a lot of people are upset, but that's Dungeons and Dragons. That's Wizards of the Coast, which is wholly owned subsidiary these days of Hasbro Gaming, just like Avalon Hill is. So you've got Avalon Hill with HeroQuest, and people are like, "Oh man, please don't do this to our game." So HeroQuest is very open and free, and at least so far, there's no open gaming license with that. Now the whole thing was with D&D that they did the 1.2 version of the OGL, the Open Gaming License, and people who had looked at it so far, I have not read it, but people were reading it and saying, well, this isn't much better. This is pretty much just the same old stuff, and they're just making excuses, and it's pretty annoying. But anyway, I just want to pause and acknowledge the fact that we've got some people here in the Quest Talk with us. I see Karningul and I see Ribby. Welcome, gentlemen. You guys want to say anything? Hey. Hey, I think you might be coming through my other speakers. That's interesting. Let me just check my settings here. I apologize. I'm wondering if there's always some technical issue going on. Oh, output device. Here we go.
my headset, and I have all my other audio coming out of the speakers.
Perfect. Okay. I think it's good now. So welcome to the stream. Yeah, so we kind of talked the D&D thing to death, but do you guys want to say anything about it? Or anything about
Well,
the
you said,
recent
yeah. I mean, you said you hadn't read it. I think there were. I've looked at.
1.2?
I've been following it somewhat closely. It's better, but I think it still has a lot of things that are going to be deal breakers for a lot of third-party vendors.
Yeah.
And I know that there's just a lot of distrust, right? Like at this point, when Wizards of the Coast says they're doing it for reason XYZ, people are like, we're not sure we believe you.
Yeah. Kind of like the PayPal thing. It's like, oh, just kidding. It was just a mistake. And people are like, it seems pretty shady. Like you were just about to screw us over, weren't you? Yeah. So I get it. I get it. And I don't know. Part of me, I think at the beginning was like, who cares? Because I'm not going to try to use D&D to make my own game and sell it and try to make a fortune.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this idea that they're going to just phase everything out and it's going to be just in the future, people won't even know what Dungeons and Dragons is. They're just going to think it's a digital game where you got to like subscribe and like buy all this stuff. And it's just, and like anybody that tries to step out of line with that is going to get sued into the ground.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
that really just rubs me raw. Like that's just terrible. Like you had this nice game where people could just like use their imagination and it's such a legacy and it was just starting to go mainstream. So it was like big money, big prizes. I love it. And then trash.
It very much seems clear that a big part of this is a desire to try and drive the audience to virtual tabletop application they're supposed to be developing. But it seems like they really were going overboard on trying to kind of not leave people any good alternatives, as opposed to just make a better product than anyone else, and the audience will naturally gravitate there.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to make the license have terms that are going to cripple their competition.
Yeah, Pathfinder, Paizo, all that stuff.
No, I mean other virtual tabletops.
Oh, okay, like Tabletop Simulator, that type of thing, or Roll20.
Foundry, Roll20, yeah, all of these
Foundry.
things. They're trying to put restrictions on how virtual tabletops can use their content, where it's like, but that wouldn't apply to them.
Yeah, and everybody I know, they use those things. That's exactly how they play. Because we're spread across the whole country at this point. All us hometown people that kind of moved away over time.
Yeah.
Well, and when the whole shit hit the storm back in the fan rather.
Well, just so you know, let me interrupt for a second. This is the RantCast podcast. Yeah, we do the language warning because we are not, this is not.
Oh no! I wasn't apologizing
fans, so
for swearing. I was confused by the fact that what I said made no sense, because the expression is "shit hits the fan," not "shit hits the storm."
Well,
let someone just throw out an F-bomb real quick. Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
But we started, even though we all live close together and used to meet in person. When everything went crazy back in 2020.
Yep.
We switched to doing virtual sessions, just because people were a little uncomfortable. We weren't sure, where things were heading, and it was like, well, we can just go online for now, and things settle down. If we all feel safe, we'll come back to being in person.
Yeah.
And it was great to have that tool out there and have that be an option.
Oh yeah.
And it is. It is interesting because, of course, there are some certain things that the virtual systems can do that are, it's a lot easier to do there than it is to do on a real table.
Oh, yeah. There's stuff we do on HeroQuest fans that you wouldn't do. Like, I'm just imagining people sitting at a table playing HeroQuest, and, like, somebody walks in from the other room and goes, yep, and you guys have a potion now. And they just throw an extra card on the table. Like, it'd be so weird. But that's how we play.
Yeah. Well, I think that, one of the really big ones that I always think of is Vision, right? Which D&D is a much, meatier simulation than HeroQuest is.
Yeah, it can be.
So, like, in a VTT, you can easily have each player, because they're all, on their own screen, they're only seeing like a circle of stuff around their particular token.
Like a fog of war.
Right, and everything else is in the fog of war.
Yeah.
It's like you can see what your token can see, and the virtual system can just do that for you automatically, and it can handle like lighting, like depending on where the light sources are and whether your character can see, has racial ability to see in the dark, like all that kind of stuff. Like it can handle all that stuff seamlessly. Where trying to like you kind of I've never been a part of a group that actually tried to like put something on the table for that. It was just sort of a, well, your character's at disadvantage because you're in the dark and nobody has any torches burning and you're a human, so you can't see anything.
Just put on my steampunk night vision goggles that you didn't know I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a tool, and I feel like it's kind of like a company trying to make regulations over like how to play hide and seek or something. It's Dungeons and Dragons is such an interesting case because you have this game where it's really just the imagination. But yes, it's codified in a book, and yes, the book gives you permission to do whatever you want. But most people kind of follow a pattern where they buy all these expensive books and they make all these maps and they do all this stuff. And yes, they were saying, well, okay, it's kind of like public libraries during the pandemic. They were just like, oh, we'll just do story time with the kids virtually. And they're reading all these books, and then all these companies are like, wait a minute, we've got to like defend our copyright now. Let's sue all these like, families and kids and libraries, and it's just like it kind of upends everything because there's no grace extended. It's just we got to make every penny we can. And
everyone thinks that all the companies think that they are entitled to they're a massive piece of the pot. They all think they're the indispensable piece. It's one of my huge kind of criticisms of just the way that we manage intellectual property in our kind of modern era is just every single like person along the chain that makes things happen thinks they're the indispensable link that the whole thing would collapse without.
Right. Well, and
so they're all holding their hand out.
Well, and I think the maybe the way the argument often goes is it swings the other way, and people say, oh, well, if you say no to this, you're saying it's just going to be anarchy. Everyone's going to steal everything. There's going to be no innovation, no competition. Everything's going to collapse. But that's not true because, I mean, there is a middle ground. I mean, these different laws are super complicated. You can, modify them. It's not like there's just one way or the other.
Yeah, I think we would see better outcomes, honestly, if stuff was opened up a little bit more, where it was like you can't just copy, like where it was made more explicit and there was more protection afforded to people who aren't copying stuff verbatim but are like taking something and then building something new on top of it or whatever. Right. Which, like, there's circumstances where you can do it, but it's like this, the thing that the OGL really did, I don't know if you've seen some of this stuff, is that from a legal standpoint, the OGL really didn't offer anything that couldn't already get, like just under copyright law and what is actually copyrightable and what isn't. But what it offered was legal certainty. This was a promise from Wizards of the Coast saying, hey, as long as you abide by these terms, you don't have to worry about us suing you.
By the way, shout out to the character sheet on comicbook.com. That was the video we were showing, just to get some background, because I realized we started talking about TseuQuest, and I thought, well, I should let you guys say something about D&D.
You have to tell me where that name comes from.
TseuQuest?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds like...
That was the one... That was the thing I think I saw you mention. That was like the GameZone thing they tried to do in Spain.
Yeah, let's swing back to that topic there.
Let's say, isn't it like a palindrome?
Yeah, it is.
Kind of name of
So, not trying to get copyright struck.
Oh,
here.
I see. It's Quest.
Yeah, that's all they did, and that goes back to again the difference between, even though it's all under Hasbro, HeroQuest, where they're like, please modify this, please change it. They allow stuff. They allow homebrew or indie or spin-off HeroQuest stuff that's clearly inspired, compatible, whatever, as long as they change the name and make it clear it's unofficial. Yeah. So you had Sunday Quest, Dungeon Quest, even though Dungeon Quest is kind of problematic from the fact that He just copied like other people's work.
He just stole
Yeah.
people's work
He's
that
just
was put
selling
out
it.
there for free.
Yeah,
and he's selling it, which
Yep.
is just scummy.
It is. But that's, or wait a minute, I think I'm getting it wrong because Amalgam Ash will correct me on this. There's Dungeon Quest, which is an actual board game from like the 80s, and there's Dungeons Quest, which I think is a HeroQuest product that, yeah, steals other fan work and sells it.
Yeah.
I know with Sunday Quest, I checked the prices, at least back when I checked it probably a year ago, it was like more or less the price you would pay if you just took the stuff into your local copy center and printed it out. So he's probably not even making much, if anything, off that stuff.
Yeah.
But at least he wrote the quests. So it's like, yeah, sell your own stuff. And this, all these debates go back. I remember in the 90s, like game mods. People would make mods, and then you have like your Counter Strikes and your Team Fortress, and people saying, "Well, I should be able to." I created this mod even though I used someone else's game engine, and that was before you had Unreal Tech and id Tech and all that stuff. Where people would just buy engines and use them to make games. So I don't know. Video games have kind of gone through it, and they're trying to do it with board games, but yeah, they're trying to force you to do digital. I don't know. Anyway, let's switch topics here to TseuQuest. So when I first saw this, I guess I got into it kind of late. I didn't hear about this until shortly before the Hasbro Pulse campaign started.
Oh, that was after the whole thing was over, wasn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, but the thing is, like,
I didn't remember them over. I didn't remember them overlapping. Well, I guess they actually did eventually put out a product. Is that?
Nope.
No.
Here's the story. Now someone else can correct me on this. Technically, the website is still up. So GameZone Miniatures. I had to restart my whole system, so I've lost all these links that I was using. Are you still in business? The most repeated fact since 2002. So they started in 2002. So they're still around, and I don't want to, be guilty of slander or libel. So there's some type of legal proceeding going on right now. But technically, there's still a product, but it has not been released. I think they were saying August.
Legal proceeding between who?
Something to do with the owner of the company. Like,
okay,
I was running it through a translator from Spanish to English to try to figure out what was going on. It was something about like assets, like they were going to evaluate like how much it was worth or something, which sort of implies, was there damages? Did someone sue because they didn't get the product? Or because I guess they've been telling people since 2016 that they're going to get this product. And it looks cool. I mean, and they've done little things to like change it up, make it look more modern. So the cards are like taller, and the dice are like barrel dice instead of standard D6s. And the cards, the hero cards, have like little dials built into them so that you can track body points like on the card. But I mean, it looks very much like HeroQuest. But still, it's like even without this product, you can still buy the individual miniatures. But I'm just going to say this right now to anyone out there, even who's a diehard follower of this, I would not recommend sending them your money for the set.
No, I wouldn't.
Now, if you're going to buy an individual miniature, at least you know what you're getting. But your other money may be tied up. The other controversy was, this is just a slogan. This isn't really a frequently asked questions. Whoops. The other controversy was when Hasbro released their remake of HeroQuest. So that would have been November 2021 because retail came out in December. When they did, as soon as they did that, GameZone, maker of TseuQuest now, they were saying, well, you can change your order from our product to Hasbro's product. So it was like, oh, okay. So you could get the Mythic tier instead. But I guess those people are still waiting for their Mythic tiers. Like they were promised a product. So it might have something to do with that, but I don't know 100%. And of course, I can't dispense legal advice. Hey, TheStrangeBus is here. So video game, theater, and music is TheStrangeBus. Welcome, sir.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, right, is that you can't actually copyright game mechanics.
Right.
So it's like they could make a more or less exact clone. They would just have to change enough. Like anyone could, right? At least under U.S. law, you just have to change enough that it's not the same expression of those mechanics. And that's where things get tricky, you know, to sort of just briefly bring the OGL back in. It's like, that was why the OGL was useful in the marketplace, was because it was like, I'm probably legally entitled to do this anyway. But this license guarantees that now I have a contractual relationship that prevents me from getting sued. Because, of course, even if you know you're right, having to defend a lawsuit is expensive and can still be uncertain. Like, sometimes, you know, not even judges get it right all the time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And it's like, so it's like you can be like, no, I'm fairly confident. My legal advice has told me I'm on firm legal ground here. And it's like, yeah, but Hasbro's a big company with a lot of lawyers. They could sue you anyway.
Yeah, just keep it tied up in court, make you bankrupt you with costs.
Yeah, or just, you know, you don't even have, like, you can't afford what it'll cost. And it's like, well,
So
I got to reach a settlement or fold because I can't, I just don't have the capital to be able to take on a giant like that in court, period. And, you know, I think that's sort of what they were counting on, I think, with the way the GL thing rolled out, is they were like, well, we're just going to bully everyone into agreeing.
Yeah. It looks like it's all here. Maybe not in the same configuration. I mean, there's so many gray pieces you'd have to paint, but I'm not sure what dispawnable means.
Are you looking at their website?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it almost looks like you could just, because they're a miniatures company, you could just like buy all the miniatures and then print some approximation
print tiles and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of thinking when you're talking about like making your own game. I mean, I guess technically in a way I've made my own HeroQuest game, like without realizing it. Like I was making a mod where I replaced magic with alchemy. And so like instead of Ball of Flame, it's Greek Fire. Instead of Fire of Wrath, it's the Fire Lance. Instead of Pastor Rock, it's the Hyrex Cage. And it's
what's your formula for Greek Fire? Because I'd really like to know how to make that.
Well, it's a secret formula that only the alchemists know, and they write in languages that others can't read. So sorry.
I'm joking on the fact that we actually don't know today what Greek Fire is made out of.
There's all kinds of theories. He has a naphtha. What is it?
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it can just be naphtha. Naphtha doesn't have the properties wrote about it having.
Of course,
not all of them at least.
Those descriptions might be describing
right. They might be exaggerated.
Yeah, they might be exaggerated.
That's true.
But I mean, they had like super soakers that they could fire on ships and stuff.
Yeah, I think they were very there's some very specific descriptions of how it was deployed and how it behaved, and it's like, unless this is really just a pack of lies, we've had a hard time figuring out a substance that seems like they would have known how to have access to that would actually fit the bill.
Because it was such a secret weapon, supposedly, like portion of the formula would be in one guy's hands, and then somebody else would have another part of it. So they couldn't just capture a guy, torture him, and force him to.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Roman state secret in the Eastern Roman Empire. Like that was literally, it was like the emperor decided who got to know which pieces. Like it was so important that nobody got to know how it worked.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And as I was creating my little mod, because I was just looking for creative replacements for everything, basically. I was like reading books on alchemy, and it was just like, okay, well, there's different time periods and different cultures, and so it's not like an exact one-to-one. I mean, like the genie, what's a genie? Well, just say it's a Chinese rocket. You shoot a rocket bomb, you blast open the door, or you blast
a monster.
Right. So it's just like, okay,
yeah,
exploding.
What's that?
Something is exploding.
Ah, welcome. That sounds like iKarith, aka Nightbird, aka all those other things. Welcome, sir, to the RantCast.
Evening.
We finally got you on the RantCast, and now I don't want you to say a word. No, I'm kidding.
We've already covered your favorite topic.
Yes, we have. Well, we had, to be fair, we had an entire episode, two entire episodes devoted to D&D.
2 episodes.
2.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Nightbird, iKarith, sir, let's. Can you give me just maybe like a concise reaction to 1.2?
OGL.
Worse. Ooh.
Worse, because it's sneaky.
Sneaky.
It's sneaky because it does things on its face that are not legal, and then it contains somewhere in the text. There's a thing in licenses called severability, you've seen this if you've actually read the licenses on various things. If any part of this agreement is found to be unenforceable or illegal, that part is separated from this agreement and it's like it never existed. 1.2 says, if any part of this agreement is found to be illegal or unenforceable, we can cancel the entire agreement and you get nothing.
Wow. Like Willy Wonka. Yep. You lose.
Yes.
Good day, sir. Good day, sir.
And rough. What it covers is any use. By the way, that word is not defined. What does use mean? Use of any content found in a document, the version 5.1 system reference document, any content found in that document, if you use it, you're agreeing to be subject to these terms that you may not have ever been given. It is quite possible they could argue, if you play the game using the game books, you have agreed to this new license. Because those books contain the information found in that document.
Yeah, that would definitely not fly.
It wouldn't fly.
It's like those old software agreements where you can't actually read it until you rip open the package and then you can't return it because it voids the warranty.
But the thing is, the agreement actually says that the agreement can be canceled if they want to, if any part, any word, anywhere in it is found to be not cool, then they can throw it out.
They can decide to void the whole thing.
That makes it actually worse.
And it's very strange because, like you said, usually they go out. Usually, people drafting contracts go out of their way to do the opposite. They're like, "Hey, because this is something the court can do if it's not specified. The court can decide basically.
They can throw it out.
Does this, does voiding this part mean that the whole contract is essentially pointless?
Yeah.
And if the court decides that, they go, well, this part was bad, so the whole thing has to go.
Yep.
So companies usually, or anyone, just companies,
the license
anyone
also
doing
does contain
contracts
the word
usually
irrevocable.
tries. Yeah.
It contains the word irrevocable. We said we wanted an irrevocable license.
Right.
It contains that word. And then redefines
it. We're changing the severability.
Well,
they redefined revocable to be revocable.
So they painted themselves into a corner, and then they just want to change the terms. But so could they just make like Dungeons & Dragons 2, and it's just like a different game to try to make money off of that?
The thing is, they have
to abide by their own license.
They really haven't.
They can do whatever they want with something in the future, right? Like the new version, the new like 5.5 edition or whatever you want to call it, 1D&D, which is a dumb name.
6th edition.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's going to be different enough from 5th. Feel like 6th to me, but the new edition, they can publish that stuff. They can make a different SRD for it, and they can only release that content under any license they want to write. The conflict is all over stuff that they've already released and licensed.
The thing is, because they own it, they can release it, the current edition, under as many different licenses at the exact same time as they want, and let different people pick and choose which one they want. If they want to release the same edition under this new license, they can. They just can't take away the old one. Yep. There are 4 ways that they can make the old license go away. And they know this, by the way. 4 ways they can make it go away. They can get you to agree to something new, which says the old one is gone.
Well, yeah, which waives your specific, your as an individual right to use the old.
Because if you agree to new terms, you agree to those new terms. You have, if you've been doing anything with the old version, you have an agreement with them, the 1.0. If you agree to something new, the new agreement can say we're throwing out the old one.
Yep.
And it does.
Yeah, they can't just do it unilaterally to everyone who they're not currently.
Unless the previous license said they could, and it doesn't, and their own website said they can't.
Yeah.
So.
They
could argue we intended all along to be able to do that, and then they're going to say.
It's pretty clear that it could be. Didn't. Yeah, it's pretty clear someone could prove that they didn't, because the guy who was in charge when they wrote it and released it has said otherwise publicly.
Yep. So that's the first. Well, and their own website said so for 2 decades.
Until last year. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the first way. The second way is that they can somehow get you to violate the old license.
Yes.
The old license is not
They
like
can pull the
without-
permission for having violated the terms.
Yep. The terms are pretty generous, but if you violate them, they can pull the license from you, not from everyone else.
Right.
Way number 3.
That can be I think with an open license that's just a offer to anyone, that can be a tough.
They can still say we've revoked your license because you broke it, and you're no longer allowed to use this thing.
Right. I mean, then you can sue them though for, in theory, if you believed they were doing that in bad faith, you could sue them, and you could basically sue them for performance and say, no, I'm going to make a court declare that you have to allow me to continue using the license because you didn't have grounds to void it.
Anybody can sue anybody over anything at any time. That's just welcome to
I think you didn't.
the Western world.
I think you weren't here yet because I was saying basically that the biggest thing that the OGL doesn't really confer rights that don't already exist just under statutory copyright law.
It does, because you aren't allowed the reproduction.
It allows you to copy stuff word for word that you otherwise have to paraphrase.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can create something
functionally
called
though, right. Functionally, you could just about everything that was produced under the OGL could probably have been put into a state that didn't require it if really wanted to.
I think I sent this to Kurgan because I thought it was hilarious, but I didn't post it in the channel because a couple of people on the HeroQuest Discord were making it very clear that
we're not going to shout out.
They're not going to allow me to continue to discuss this. Well, whatever.
Well, here's the thing, iKarith. They don't have the authority to do that. I do, because it's my Discord. But I was deciding that, you know what, we're going to try to put the D&D stuff over here, and we're going to continue with our original mission, which is all things HeroQuest in a community. Not to say the stuff isn't important. I think it very much is. But there is an Avalon Hill Discord talking about all things. Well, not all things. I guess.
Oh, they're not talking about this.
Yeah, they can't because it's not Wizards of the Coast. But even if it was, I have a feeling that.
And on the Wizards of the Coast, they blocked discussion of this topic.
So going back to Shadzar's initial upset, which is that, I don't have a place to talk about this stuff. We want there to be a place. So I guess if you and if you have questions for me, we can always talk off camera.
I sent you a video though. And for one brief second in the video, where the channel is Dungeon Craft, where Dan DeFazio, Professor Dungeon Master, talks about mostly his thoughts on running kind of an old schoolish sort of game.
I think I did.
And
watch it.
he asked his Death Knight character Deathbringer what he thought about the license, and Deathbringer responds, "Give me that license that I might wipe my ass with it."
It's pretty direct.
And I'm like, I want that clip. I want to be able to repost that clip widely because
T-shirt, put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Find the license, print it out, put it on the toilet paper, and sell it. It's like very, very tiny print. It's like, wait a minute.
The toilet paper.
They'll sue, and it's like, listen, you come get it, and it'll be all flushed down before you can get here.
See, Hasbro, you've got to understand. We know that you're big into the merchandising.
Hey.
OGL the toilet paper.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. Someone said. Okay, well, this is amazing.
Yeah, so
welcome.
There are 4 ways.
Yeah.
I mentioned 2 of them. The third is they can go to a judge and convince the judge that the law, decades of legal precedent, and any common sense don't apply because, oh my god, NFTs and blockchains. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I feel like that's another one that's going to be a tough argument to make, but I suppose.
But the thing is, they could sue you and try to make that case before a judge, And defending yourself is expensive. You will get your money back. Because if you win, you will get your money back.
You don't, not necessarily. At least not in the U.S. court system. There's a lot of
for this you
types,
would.
Yeah, there's a lot of types of cases though where our legal system actually operates by default on a system of each side is responsible for the costs.
Their own costs. Yeah, but
you don't get to fee ship.
Win, they can award damages and say you got to pay the court costs of the other guy.
In this sort of case,
not damages.
You would be able to ask for attorney's fees to be paid.
You can ask for costs,
you have to win
costs,
first.
not damages. My bad.
Yeah.
You have to win.
Things.
I don't even play a lawyer on
both.
TV. Sorry.
You can sometimes get both. You can get damages and costs if in the right circumstances.
Well, let's iKarith, you were going down your bullet points. So yeah.
So that's the third. Mm-hmm. That they'd have to argue and convince a judge, and your bills would be yours right up until the judge said, "Fine, they're paying your lawyers." And if they did that, they would pay pretty quickly because you'd have the right to start seizing assets of the company.
You'd be able to garnish their revenue and shit.
I wonder. Well, again, that's just be wild speculation. The whole TseuQuest situation. I kind of want to move on to that next topic, but iKarith.
Oh, that's fun.
I mean, that's a whole trickier thing because you're dealing with international stuff at that point.
It's like
the whole thing when
Spain.
Well, right, the whole thing how it all started, as I recall, when it first hit my radar, it was because somebody hadn't been paying attention and they had been able to specifically get the trademarks to the HeroQuest name, but only in Spain. So it was we can make it, we can sell it, we just are limited in the international reach, and but of course HeroQuest has a huge English-speaking audience, so people from all over the world, right? People from all over the world were like, "How can I get this?" And then it.
How you could get it if it was that they stopped trying to use the HeroQuest trademark, and they do that OrcQuest thing.
We're going to talk about OrcQuest as well.
And
I want to shout
out.
I want
to get number 4 out of the way real quickly.
I want to shout out to Amalgamash because he's done videos on all this stuff already. So,
I'm sure he has.
Yeah, he is a video making machine.
He is
more than man. But
before we move on to that, the fourth way is that they just convince you that they have power that they do not have. Mm-hmm. If you believe that they have the power to take away the old license, then you will act as though they can, and effectively they can. That's it. 4 ways.
Yep.
They can get you to agree to something new. They can get you to break the old one. They can go to a judge, expensive but not likely to win, or they can make you afraid of the old license somehow, convince you that you don't have it. That's it. And they know it. That's why all the tricks and traps, subterfuge, half-truths, and whole lies.
Mm-hmm. Well, for my part, thank you for that. For my part, this TseuQuest, I mean, when I first heard about this, I kind of just had it in my mind that
what a train wreck.
This will be the official HeroQuest. That was my initial thought. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just get used to it. And I was actually much happier with the Hasbro idea of just dumbly remake it. Just spit it out, regurgitate it. You know what? HeroQuest
trying to rethink it too much.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, they tweak it in a couple annoying ways, but whatever, I can live with it. On the other hand,
the ways they tweak it are very annoying.
Looking back, though, let's say there was no debacle about the legal issues. There was no angry customers that weren't getting what they were promised. There was no double talk or anything like that or development hell with the TseuQuest. I'd buy it. I'd be like, if it was available for real.
I would have too. Yeah, if it was a real thing. Yeah. But I mean, it was apparent very early though that it was like this wasn't somebody on super firm legal ground. This was someone thinking that they had found a loophole, and that's always like that's a super tenuous thing to trust to put your money to.
That goes back to the 25th anniversary HeroQuest project, which was literally the same sort of thing. People just thought, nobody really owns this trademark anymore. That's not really true because corporations tend to keep them.
Well, tell me, what's the difference between TseuQuest and HeroQuest 25th? Were these separate projects?
Is that the same company?
Different. They could be the same company. I don't know.
I'm going to go back because I thought...
The 25th was GameZone. That was the company that made
GameZone
that.
Miniatures formed in 2002. They were going to do this HeroQuest remake. And that's the one...
So that was them with the... that was them
TseuQuest.
having the trademark in Spain.
Yeah.
And then because they don't, they decided to rename it.
And Chaosium wasn't using it anymore. And then, it's like this little weird period where Hasbro's like, nope, we've got it. It's ours. Got to change your name.
Oh, what a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if
it looks cool though. I would have bought it. And because, like any game, like I'm like these other guys that go out and go, ooh, those look like some cool assets in that box. I'm going to buy it, chuck the rules to the side, and use it for my own thing.
Yeah.
It's an expensive way to do hobbies sometimes.
A box of miniatures, hey.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
bigger army.
When you look at this one and you look at OrcQuest, you see like, okay, you've got your green, you've got your white, you got your red, and then you've got this massive army of gray. That is kind of annoying because unfortunately I've associated gray in my mind with unpainted. Even though they're all unpainted, but I mean, like, need to paint it.
Dunk splash.
You got to paint your Chaos Warriors, huh?
Yep. Just got to spray paint it all. I love using spray paint. I just want to say, like, how it's just changed my whole outlook using, like, Krylon instead of Rust-Oleum on some of these things. Because...
Yeah, I think I recommended Krylon.
Yeah, you were the guy. Thank you for that. Well, I mean, I had some anyway, because I was just, like, buying it based on color.
The thing I run into with the Krylon... Yeah, the thing I run into with Krylon
bendy
is...
plastic.
I like to do a lot of my priming black, because a lot of the stuff I'm painting is, like, on the darker side of the spectrum in terms of morality. Like, when I tried to get into Warhammer... Oh, and that's a whole thing I could rant about.
White represents death.
Oh God, we'd be here all night.
No, not not. This isn't really about GW's sort of shittiness as a company. This was like, I tried to get into Warhammer, and like the ground kept shifting under my feet before I could get my army done.
Yeah.
So I'd be like working and then be like, whoops, this army has been invalidated. Whoops, this been invalidated again. Whoops, it's been invalidated a third time.
Space Crusade and Warhammer Quest.
Spending thousands on these things, and then suddenly, as soon as you spend thousands of dollars, it's like, oh, you have to buy all new stuff.
It's kind of like the Magic the Gathering.
That really does go back to the shittiness of the company.
I started to get in during Warhammer Fantasy, though, where there tended to be a lot of continuity. Like, that was the problem with Warhammer Fantasy as a platform, was there was, from a business perspective, there was too much continuity of the armies. Like, each edition tended to only add a few new bells and whistles to the faction, so it was like, well, most of your army is the one you've already got, so it was like, we're not selling people enough new stuff. It was like, and that was, I think, the big driver behind scrapping Warhammer Fantasy as a platform, was they were like, we need to come up with a new game that really will drive people to just buy entire new suites of models.
It's a weird thing, because it's like, instead of trying to get new customers and keep expanding, it's like, we just got to get this hardcore group, like, as addicted and hooked in as possible, that they just spend all their money on our stuff. Like, your paycheck comes in, it goes right to the Warhammer store.
I mean, that's always going to be tricky, because
all right, let's
Warhammer Fantasy on the scale, that was always going to be a
bot.
You know, it's just a massive barrier to entry. You need a lot of models, even for the armies that are kind of a smaller number of units.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of models that you have to buy, assemble, and paint to even be able to sit down and play the game. Like, I have never
one at a time.
Yeah, I have never played a game because I never got my army in a state where it was complete for the rules and the kind of typical army size that people want to play.
One time.
Yeah,
like, here, play with these, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Like they gave you a loner army or something.
Right. That was it, because it was just too expensive for me at the time.
Now,
that's a cool.
The going back to a Hasbro property that's at least somewhat similar in scope, or trying to be.
HeroScape.
HeroScape.
Yeah.
The way they did that was, hey, buy a buy this faction that may or may not fit into the existing lore, and you get, a little bit of terrain, what is needed to play the specific things that are in the box. You've got these individual units,
What was
which
it? Common and unique, or something?
you had you had common and unique. The common ones you'd have more than one. Uniques you could have only one.
Mm-hmm.
And they had different abilities. They were different characters, different franchises. You could throw Marvel versus DC on the table and play
versus
that.
Capcom. Yep. Versus
Yeah, sure, why
SNK.
not? You could throw that on the table, or you could throw in, Greek gods, or you could throw in whatever. They had a lot of franchises. I never.
If you
kept
go to
up
any
with all of
dollar store these days, you can still find figures that look like HeroScape figures that they've just changed the names on. I mean, not the exact sculpt, but it's like, oh, this little Batman is like the perfect size, and the base is like just right.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
So you get these things, and and if you're making these custom, you would be basically deciding that this is what this is worth, and the people you'd be playing with would be like, yes, that is, or it isn't a fair point value and a fair ability set.
I want to acknowledge something here being said in the chat, and this is true. I agree with it. CEO
Which
Happy.
chat should I be looking at?
Oh, Twitch. Yeah.
Oh.
I just
Hi,
want to
Twitch
acknowledge.
chat.
Yeah. So even though, and we've always talked about it for years, D&D, it's like, oh, you have to buy all these expensive books. Warhammer, you got to buy all these big armies. Not necessarily. I mean, yes, you can say, well, people will make fun of you. Maybe you won't get into the tournament or whatever. But there's like a poor man's way of doing it. Just like D&D can be theater of the mind.
Yeah.
You can go to the library.
D&D
you can have one
doesn't
friend buy it.
actually have that high entry cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but by the same token, I mean, I was just relating a story in a previous stream about Wicked Mini Paintings. He was telling about he was at a Warhammer store and he played a guy who just had plastic bases. That was his army. And he just had written on little pieces of sticky notes saying like, yeah, this is a Space Marine with a rocket launcher. This is and it, it checked out as far as the rules were. It's like, sure, let's play. It's like,
well,
no
that checks
deal.
out only as far as your opponent is willing to play along.
Which is
like the rules actually, especially
was.
for 40K, I think the rules are pretty strictly WYSIWYG.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to be a model, and the model has to be equipped with what your army list says it has.
Well, this shampoo bottle clearly has a machine gun glued to it, so
right,
you got to accept it. Or are you afraid to face me? Like that's what you got to do. You got to play the game. Yeah, but they can't. I mean, they can't regulate what you do in your home or whatever. But yeah, they could always try to throw you out of the store, I suppose.
Well, that was the thing to try and
pressure.
You're
not one of the cool kids.
They were making it so you had to have exactly the thing that they have decided you must have that came with the model from this generation. It felt very. It felt very much like exploitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the issue is that a lot of Warhammer players just deal with it.
Yeah, I was told that I could use a deodorant stick, so I have a deodorant stick. I stripped off the labels. I've washed it. I'm going to be spraying some primer on it. I'm going to be gluing some bits to it. I mean, that's what the book told me I could do. So, I mean, I didn't track down a vintage 1987 stick of deodorant, but nevertheless, I think it'll still pass muster.
Maybe you should have.
I should have, yeah. See, it's like, hey, this is canon. Damn it.
But if you got the current book, it would say, no, you have to buy this $500 model.
Right.
And of course, it's $2 worth of plastic.
Happens to be shaped just like a deodorant bottle. It's like, wait a minute. You just made it official. You can 3D print those too. You can. They have 3D prints right now that are shaped like deodorant bottles. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I could just go to the store, use it up. That's what I'm gonna do anyway. Guys, use your deodorant, use your shampoo. I recommend
please, gamers, please use deodorant.
I know not every culture does it, but you're in this enclosed space. You're sitting there for hours.
Gamers, I can smell it now.
If everybody smells, okay, if you live in a culture where nobody uses that stuff, yeah, you're used to it. But anywhere else, you're gonna
a little spritzer of body spray would be nice.
That guy is gonna stand out like a sore thumb. It's like something smells. Oh man, better win this fight quick because we got to get out of here.
That's an interesting development though in the whole wargaming scene is the 3D printing aspect of everything.
Yeah.
Biological warfare.
I
That
was a
guy
little
hasn't had a shower
shocked.
in 2 weeks.
No
'Cause
offense.
I'd kind of been out of the game for a while, and I was a little shocked when I started looking for proxies for special, the various special characters.
I've never
Just
played
how
Warhammer.
widespread. No, for HeroQuest after
the proxies.
when
yeah.
when I had like I had a mythic pledge for the pledge drive, and and then we had a baby, and so it was sort of like, well, the box is sitting on a shelf, and I only just fairly recently was like, oh yeah, I could try and restart that project because I don't know, I like to have figure for all the named, or at least most of the named characters. I think I posted a link to the ones I'm using the other day.
That's cool.
And I was just taken a little bit aback at just how widespread the 3D printing had gotten, like just how
I have a whole
massive that business appears to be.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of 3D printed miniatures. I kind of regret some of the ones that I bought because I got some from Minis 3D on Etsy.
Yeah.
And back then they were like fragile, like glass. And I mean, if you watch some of the early streams where we were doing the Frozen Horror before the remake version came out, I was using those. So I mean, I just gave them like a simple one color and then a wash, and it looks fine on camera. But yeah, now he was cool about it. I contacted him because I had several pieces break, and I was just like, thinking to myself, screw this guy. I just thought, fine, I'll just write him a complaint. And he was like, okay, well, which one's broke? And I showed him the photos, and he replaced all of them with like the newer resin that's like bendy. It's like, oh, hey, that's
awesome.
That's
so
nice.
he is using a bendy resin
can't
now.
beat that.
Yes.
See, that's the thing is, at the time when he first made those, the state of the art was that brittle resin.
Yeah,
nowadays,
perfect for painting and putting on a shelf. Terrible for like handling because they would just break like just sitting there. Like it's like, oh, breaks right off.
But the state of the art now, it uses a more expensive resin, but it costs for what they're, when you buy a 3D printed model, what you are mostly paying for is the time the guy's printer spent printing and his cleanup time.
Not the sandwiches he ate while he sat there nervously waiting for it to finish.
And, the possibility that it didn't print right, or
he had to go through several.
His time is spent mostly waiting, but you're paying for the fact that he could be doing other things with his machine during that time.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Well,
so you're paying for, time on a machine and then labor after the machine is done. But those costs don't really change much if he uses resin that is, $20 a bottle versus $16 a bottle.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even if it was $30 a bottle, it doesn't matter.
And I don't know what kind of operation this guy has, but nevertheless, I mean, he's not the only game in town. There's other people that do this, and my brother-in-law has a 3D printer, and I mean, it's not resin, it's just filament. But honestly, some of the prints that he's given me, like for nothing, are fine for what I'm trying to do, which is slop some paint on them and throw them underneath the camera to bulk out the army. That's all I need them for. I don't need them to show off how cool I am. I mean, I love it when people display the miniatures, like all the stuff on the HeroQuest fans Discord. I love the fact that we have a massive like gallery that almost puts the yield into shame as far as what we've got going. But I just don't have that kind of skill or patience. So, 3D printing works really well for that other stuff.
It's getting easier to make. It is possible to make highly detailed miniatures on an FDM filament printer. Fat Dragon Games designed a bunch of miniatures that print well on that kind of printer. You have to design it with the notion that there are going to be layers. And if you design things so that, layers will look okay, it's easy to make a model that way. If you know what you're dealing with, it's easy to design a model that will look good when you do. And, they're not probably quite as good as a resin print, but they look fine. You have to dial in your print settings, but once you do, that's a one-time thing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had space for a printer here.
Yeah, same here for me. But yeah, I do have an avenue. I mean, I just sent I send requests to him, and they're busy. They've got a family to care for and everything. So I just whenever I see him, it's like, oh yeah, here's a box of miniatures I printed for you. Thanks. And honestly, I'm such a I don't know nostalgic guy or whatever. When I buy HeroQuest, like a vintage set, I don't paint it, and I'm like, I don't want to paint it. But I
Yeah.
will get a 3D print of the exact pieces and print those or paint those. Not just because I think, yeah, I'm going to screw it up, but the paint covers a lot of the flaws of the printing process anyway, and you can practice,
Sure.
whatever. I kind of like I don't know, it helps my imagination to
Yeah,
just have like a blank barbarian. It's not like, well, he's got blonde hair, but I'm saying, he's got gray eyes, not blue eyes. I know I said that originally, but I changed it, right?
Where's the Cheetos?
Yeah, next to the Mountain Dew. Classic. So I want to acknowledge what Ribby is saying here. It's tough to say. I have an FDM printer, and if I go super ultra detail, 0.08 millimeter layer height, a simple mini might take 6, 7, 8 hours and require cleanup after. See, I've never tried to 3D print
Easily.
anything, so
I mean, it
take your
can
word for
take quite a bit of time, and
It does take longer.
you pull it off you pull it off the bed. You're sitting there trying to like pluck out the little
Well,
support materials and stuff, and that can take a long time. And it's like somebody doesn't want to pay me.
yeah.
I go to work and I can make $40 an hour, but if I'm doing minis,
And that's why resin
nobody's
is so
wanting to
much
pay
better
me
for
that amount
this.
of money for
Yeah.
minis.
Well, and I don't,
But-
guys, I mean, this is a really cool topic, but I don't really want to debate that right now, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I know that this perennially comes up. It's like, well, how much is your time really worth? And no one can agree.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, so you count the electricity and the energy and what the opportunity cost. And it's like, I figure if you're doing it as a hobby, who cares? You can charge as much as you want and no one buys it, and as little as you
Yeah,
want.
and
And
it's a little money on the side, so
yeah,
who cares?
you're a commissioned
Sort of
artist.
thing.
If you're a professional, whatever. But yeah, whatever. I just figure like if I don't think it's worth the money, I'm gonna go somewhere else. But there's always gonna
Yeah.
be somebody who's like, oh man, I don't have time to create a level 99 character in this video game. Here, I'll just pay some kid to do it for me and just hand it to me. Like, okay, they'll always be.
Sure.
But I feel like those people are suckers, and I don't know. It's kind of like the scalping thing. It's like, well, maybe
You
it's
handed
legal,
me a melon.
but it's.
If anybody knows that reference,
Say that again.
you handed me a melon.
I don't get that reference.
Yeah.
A lot
It
of
was
the
an article, I think it was like The Escapist or something about writing a bot to level up your character in some Star Wars thing.
Oh yeah, it just keeps pressing the button over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was a big proponent of classic World of Warcraft, and we had a sort of usually kind of pejorative phrase that would be used towards someone we kind of suspected of not having done stuff necessarily legitimately. It was like, well, how'd they get all that gear? Be like, they swiped for it.
The only person who could miss with this gun is the sucker with the bread to buy it. If anybody gets that reference.
But yeah, like that's the sort of thing you were talking about, though. It's like they didn't want to earn it
Dawn of
legit.
the Dead.
They just swiped the old credit card.
The bots are coming out. Okay, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I'm just about to fatality this bot here.
I noticed that.
Overkill.
All right. Yeah, if Polsky was here, he would have banned these guys like 2 weeks ago. But okay. Yeah, they keep offering me promotion. It's like one of the guys was even called Crooked. It's like, sounds legit to me. I think I'll give you money and get myself banned. That sounds like a great deal. Sounds like a pretty good deal. Actually, I've got a better deal. How about I give you the finger? You give me my phone
got
call.
this great deal for you. My name is Crooked, and I have this great opportunity for you.
Criminal. My name is Criminal. Like, what? You're serious? All right. Let me just block him. Saint Gebetz. Well, this is a great discussion, guys. I felt really bad that I was going to have to do the solo show, and I'm like, I mean, I do what I do, but I much prefer the collaboration, the give and take that we have. So I appreciate you guys showing up and talking about this. But I do
A
want to
single person ranting.
I actually just
less fun
remembered.
than a group of people ranting.
I just remembered why I even had brought up Warhammer was just to say that that I have tended to have a lot of kind of evil minis, or at least destructive minis. I guess orcs and Warhammer aren't really evil so much as they just like fighting everything.
You're a bad man.
That's pretty.
But so I tend to like to prime in black a lot, and the Krylon black spray primer. So the Krylon black like matte paint is easy to find.
Sure.
Yeah,
The one that's actually labeled as primer. I had to like go all over the city checking every hardware store, craft store I could find. And I finally found one that actually stocked the black primer on the shelf. It was super annoying.
Yeah, I have a lot of spray paint, and one of the coolest things, because they talk about people that buy stuff they don't need and they sell it off. I mean, I tend to accumulate stuff, and it's like it's the best thing in the world when I'm like, finally I have a use for this thing, and it's not like I crack it open, and it's dried out. Darn it. But yeah, it's like I have some color spray paint that I bought years ago. It's still good, and it's like finally I've got it. So yeah, I do have some Krylon matte black. I don't know if it's the primer. I'll probably have to look more carefully at it.
No, it says primer on the can.
Primer. Okay.
If it's the primer, it says primer.
I wanted to say one thing, just even though it's not on one of our approved topics for today. I sprayed Rust-Oleum paint plus primer, which I'm told is just a gimmick, on one of the HeroQuest figures, and it was still tacky like a week later.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yep. So
there was a whole discussion of the various sprays.
I was looking for Krylon of that color. See, the thing is, though, I mean, I sprayed the Krylon on the bendy rubber plastic that the HeroQuest figures are made out of, the remake figures, and it worked great. It was more just like me, like, okay, did I get every angle of it, right? Because I was spraying it to coat it, not spraying it to paint it.
Yeah.
But I think this elf will be okay. But if worse comes to worse, I can just try to special order that exact color and just strip it and use the Krylon. But anyway, whatever.
There's always, I think there's kind of a learning curve, I assume.
Yeah.
I know how to use the Krylon. I know how to use the Krylon sprays, but I'm sure I would probably have to do some practice if I was going to a different. Because like the first time, I have I have an orc figure that I just way overblasted with primer when I was still setting out, and I should have done more test models first. But I was like, I think I'm ready, and I wasn't ready. So that one was very tricky to get them to try and figure out the right areas to paint in different colors to actually sort of bring the borders of the different areas of the model back out. It was like I had to look at pictures of painted versions online to be like, wait, is that supposed to be his arm or is that armor? It was like,
the spiked gauntlet.
Because I had blown away a lot of the definition, and it's like it's when you paint it, it kind of comes back out a little bit. You can see it again.
Yeah.
But until it's all black, and it's like, wait, is this? I can't tell if this is supposed to be a border between areas or not. Or if it's just texture within an area.
I can't remember if I showed. No, I think I did. I actually did. It looks like a lawn gnome. I painted it like a miniature, and I used black primer, and it worked really well. And then my niece did like a garden fairy with like a lighter primer. So it's like it was interesting to see like how each of us kind of worked on it. So, but anyway, I think it's time for us to move on to the next topic. I mean, a lot of these topics are we could do multiple episodes, but so TseuQuest, I think the bottom line for me is if it ever came out for real, I would buy it. But at this point, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen. Just my opinion.
With the Avalon Hill one, I don't think I would anymore.
It's like you've already got the better product.
Yeah.
I've already got a now pristine condition, modern rendition of HeroQuest. What am I going to do with a second one?
I think the miniatures looked really cool, but it was more like somebody else has made their own game inspired by HeroQuest, whereas Avalon Hills is just this is HeroQuest with just a facelift.
At this point, given all of the delays, the fact that people have paid and got nothing, development hell, everything else.
Yeah, you can say I'm mad at the company, so they don't deserve my money, even if they did come out with it.
I understand that OrcQuest also had an issue, but another company is picking it up.
Let's jump into that.
They brought it back.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue.
Yep. OrcQuest. This is why we bring you on here, buddy. So OrcQuest Warpath Resurrection. So there was a Kickstarter, an actual Kickstarter.
They're not going to be able to have it say WOG.
Well, my thought was, so after the HeroQuest pledge drive, even though I have a Mythic set, even though I have 3 Guardian Knights that I bought legit for $15 a piece, even though I've done that, I vowed not to support Kickstarters or pledge campaigns anymore, and I vowed not to do pre-orders. As my self-imposed rule. So if this ever comes to retail, I'm in. Like, I'm convinced. Like, it looks great, in my opinion. So shout out to this video person. So this is the King of Average. Before that, we were looking at Double Fail. So have you guys read up on like how the game mechanics work for OrcQuest?
Yeah, I printed out the rule book, the quest book. I read through the whole thing.
Oh, I didn't know all that was available.
Absolutely. On the Warpath quick Kickstarter, you can go. They have a link on there somewhere. You can download the full rule book and the quest book for it.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'll have to do that because I was going to say,
it's quite a read.
I don't know about the whole modular dungeon thing. I've never actually played a game that has that. I'm like, oh, it's going to fall off the table. But I guess it wouldn't have to. But I kind of like the mechanic of, okay, where the dice fall is where you put the tiles. And then you flip the tiles over, and it's like, okay, a different fight each time. And then you're trying to level up your guy to, impress your orc deity known as Badass. And you've got the porks. So they're like the pigmen orcs from Dungeons and Dragons, except, they're actually pigs. And orcs eat them and stuff, and then you've got the humans and the elves, but you're the bad guys. So, but I get the impression that the lore of this is not, these are the poor, noble, savage orcs that are just so misunderstood, and they're just trying to protect their lands from the evil developers that are trying to, build casinos on there. It's like, no. These are classic orcs that just like to fight and destroy.
Are rowdy orcs who want to, who love a good fight.
They love it.
They aren't necessarily evil, but
they're just really gross and nasty. But yeah, they're not necessarily demonic, but they definitely enjoy indulging their darker side. So yeah, you get to play the bad guys, and I've often said that. Like, when I first heard about OrcQuest, it was a card game, and it was clearly a spoof of HeroQuest, like in the artwork. I mean, you had, instead of the barbarian swinging the sword like the Les Edwards artwork, it was a big orc, and there were like humans ducking underneath, human warriors, and you had the orc sorcerer. But then, yeah, they decided to make it into an actual board game. It's like, wow, what a cool idea. And there's Skaven in there. They don't call them Skaven, Ratmen, or whatever they're called. Lousy rats. That's what they call them. So there's all these jokes in there. There's all this humor. I appreciate that.
It is so fun.
Even better than like the Warhammer humor, I think.
I'm totally here for the humor in OrcQuest. That's so much fun. I'm gonna have a blast playing it.
So you supported it, so you're getting it. I have a question though.
I backed it at $1 because I had already. I have a finite amount of disposable income in a month, as you know, and I had already spent it on third-party publishers dealing with the Hasbro stuff. Put my money where my mouth is there.
Sure, but with your wallet.
But they have the option to actually back OrcQuest. If you put in your $1 during the campaign, you have the option to actually up your pledge and get a copy. Yeah. So I will do that
I excluded myself from the game, so to speak.
Well, what was interesting is Monolith said
Monolith Games, yeah.
Just prior to the end of the Kickstarter, they're like, we're gonna do an English English language playthrough video, so you can see a whole scenario play through, but we're not going to have it ready before the end of the Kickstarter. So
got to do those
people were like,
unboxing
okay,
videos.
let's pledge $1, and then maybe we can see one of these videos and decide whether or not we want to go all the way or not. So a lot of people did that.
It's almost too good to be true. It's like there's no way this is really going to be that good. But so far, it seems to be shaping up to be
It
something
looks pretty fun.
worthwhile.
I mean, I read through the all the rules and everything, and there's there's
Lots of
some really
colored
cool.
dice. I like
Yeah,
that.
there's some really cool. Obviously, you got all the tiles and stuff that offer some variety there, but then there's all these upgrade cards for your individual characters
Mhm.
and things like that, and the patrol mechanics and things like that were pretty interesting.
Nice.
So
Now I just want to pause
again,
here.
it's yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to pause here. You may be hearing all these positive, effusive praise of this and think, gee, is this some kind of sponsored stream? It is not. Okay. I have not pledged and I refuse to pledge. I don't care how good this
I
is.
pledged $1. I'll
I'm not
full
even pledging
disclosure.
$1. That's my self-imposed rule upon myself. But if this comes to retail, I do want to check it out. But the thing is, if it sucks, I'm going to tell you that it sucks. Of course, there's
Sure.
a lot of
Yeah.
subjectivity involved, but it seems like, see, this is the kind of sort of thing that, the HeroQuest community allows this to happen. The way HeroQuest is handled, this stuff can exist. Whereas in the D&D world, this sort of thing may be a thing of the past if they get their way, which is pretty sad. And I don't mean to go back to the old
Yeah, I mean,
topic, but just what a
I think it's too
contrast.
late for that. I think that
It's already out of the bag.
there are too many people who know that they can make products that people will buy, that they can make a profit on now, that it's
So
too late for them to try and wall the garden off.
I just picture like a future dystopia where there's a guy on a street corner. Instead of the thing saying, the end is near, he's just like, you don't need to buy D&D. You can just use your imagination. You can just write it
He
on
opens his
paper. And
trench
they're
coat
like,
and he's like, "You want some more quest, huh?"
and the stormtroopers like dragging him away, and he's like,
Yeah.
you can just play it. You can just make up your own rules. They're dragging him away to the re-education. Like, oh man.
Come and see the violence inherent in the system. Help, help, I'm being repressed.
Exactly. I didn't even know we had.
Well, see, the thing is, and I originally planned to do this because HeroQuest back in the day came out in a dozen languages. It's available in a handful now.
Yeah, they're working on
the
it.
new version,
Mhm.
but it's not available half of everywhere it used to be.
Yeah.
And it probably won't be because the corporation doesn't see the value in
Which
all
is
of those
super
other
sad.
markets.
I
And
want
that's
Japanese
fair.
HeroQuest back for the sake of the two people that owned it. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not one of them, and
I've directed commercials for the viral marketing campaign that they need to use for the Japanese HeroQuest revival. Anyway.
But the notion that I came up with is you can describe the rules for HeroQuest on a single sheet of paper, front and back, and probably have room for a dice table, which is not very HeroQuesty, but I mean, let's face it, consider the source of where HeroQuest got its, got the idea.
I just
to
want
replace
to
the treasure deck.
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to acknowledge this video that we're watching, how much this reminds me of Yield In, like the various like room tiles you can print out, which I suppose are generic to a lot of dungeon crawlers nowadays. But anyway, yeah, continue.
Because you could put the rules for HeroQuest, and you'd have to use, gamer jargon. Your turn consists of 2 phases. You have a movement phase and an action phase, and you cannot split your movement. I just described half a page, maybe the whole page in the rulebook somewhere.
As opposed to Cyberpunk, where you it's like every calculation that you could imagine and every table to make it, more complex.
But because rule mechanics can't really be copyrighted or anything, I could do this, and I considered that I would do it not as a competitor to HeroQuest, but as I called it Peasant Quest, and the idea was to put this thing out there,
right now.
to put it out there as a free thing, basically a single page, and encourage people to translate it into all of those languages. And a good part of the reason why is if you could get a copy of HeroQuest, be it poorly translated like the Spanish version, or not in your language at all, you could take the single piece of paper and play the game. And I mean, everybody makes their own rules for HeroQuest anyway, right?
Yeah. And you wouldn't have it on the cards and everything, but you can just translate it in your mind. I mean, Yield In was doing that for a while. It was like they were doing translations for stuff that hadn't existed before.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to see the version in Elvish. I want to see the version in Latin.
And then take a page from Paizo, and we've had paper standees forever. For various things.
Well, it's canon for HeroQuest in the Brazilian version.
Yeah. So I came up with a pretty good way. If you don't need to care about the size of the base, and we don't, those binder clips, the ones that have the two little wire handles that can be taken
alligator
off.
Clips? Or no, I guess those aren't alligator. Well, whatever they're called.
Big binder clips.
Yeah.
Well, they come in pretty small sizes, so if you get the size that would fit on a 1-inch grid, there's a couple of those, but you get one of the larger ones that would fit in that space, and you print
Oh, you didn't tear it.
A cardstock pawn or a paper pawn or whatever, glue it to a piece of chipboard, the stuff you do to make something equivalent to a Pathfinder pawn, stand it up on one of those little binder clips. That would give you, a bunch of critters to actually stock dungeons with. So now you got a piece of paper and you got these standees. The standees cost you nothing, essentially. $1 maybe for the binder clips and the printing.
Got any old notepads? Just take the little cardboard at the back and just get your scissors out.
So if you've got those, you've got something that is not a replacement for the game. You would take that and, it was something you could pack and, take in a backpack with you somewhere. It's very light, very easy to carry, but it's not a substitute for the actual Hasbro game. And you could, if you were in a country where you couldn't import it for whatever reason, it's prohibitively expensive to import, or the cost of the game is a month's rent where you live or something.
Yeah. The dictator was mad because his character fell in the pit trap, so he vowed when he took over that no one would play that game again in his country.
Whatever, yeah. So this would create a game that the rules would be available in as many languages as people wanted to translate. The minis would be the standard minis. You would have some sort of Death Knight to replace the Chaos Warrior. You'd have some sort of lizard creature to replace the Famir. You'd have, some fish creature to replace the Abomination. Not a replacement for Hasbro's game. But if you can't get Hasbro's game, or if you just need the rules translated into your language, it's something you can actually work with. Now, throw a board at that and acquire quests wherever you needed to. You could probably play a game of HeroQuest with that. Nice. You totally could.
Nice.
It seemed like a simple thing to do. It seemed like it would be a worthwhile thing to do. And I was planning to do it as kind of a friendly thing for the community. And I mean, we've heard from Chris and others, as long as it's not a commercial thing, nobody at Avalon Hill is really going to object. I mean, they couldn't really object.
Oh, I see. Because like Sunday Quest is not the complete game; it's just individual quests. You still need the assets to play them in theory.
Well,
But
if
you're
you
doing a rule set, and
if you supply a rule set that is effectively, and I mean, instead of roll a skull, it's you need to roll at least a 4.
got to roll a cranium.
If you want to roll for shields, you need to roll at least a 5. Black shields, it's got to be a 6.
Yeah.
Very simple. It
Gotta
wouldn't actually be
light buckler, dark
the game
buckler.
we've loved and played, but it would be something that, and one of my hobbies is I'm kind of into emergency preparedness. Kind of a little. I spent a couple of decades trying to build a business around it.
Yeah. You're one of the prepper brothers.
Yeah, except you go on to you think about like prepper sorts of people, and you go to a website and they've got like storm clouds, and I've got my gas mask and my big hunting rifle, and my prepping page had like canned tomatoes.
Sure. Don't forget your can opener. I remember the old Far Side cartoon
where my priorities were, right?
The nukes are going off, and the husband and wife are in the bunker, and they've got all these like rows and rows of cans, and it's like, you forgot the can opener. It's like, no.
Oh, the Tom and Jerry cartoon where all the cat food was in cans, and Jerry had the can opener.
I remember that. Wow, I had not thought about that in all these years till you mentioned it. So this video that we're seeing now, this guy is doing an OrcQuest unboxing. So is this the version that came out before, or did he get an early copy of the one you guys pledged for?
I think it's a prototype.
Oh,
I think it's a prototype.
It looks pretty darn good.
I was pretty pleased with it. I mean, I'm like, if this game is
it's going to take a long time to organize and put away, but I guess it's the only downside I can see.
Basically, my conclusion was, if this game ends up being stupid, what it is, it's a bunch of heroic, so far as that goes, orcs. It's a bunch of other minis that, I could literally take those things, I could play them on my HeroQuest board, and, I could defend. I could defend my prisoner Ragnar instead of trying to rescue him. Yep.
Ulag was the real traitor all along. All along. If any of you have seen Warbuilder J22, Jacer's channel on YouTube, he actually takes HeroQuest figures and Battlemasters figures and some other cheap like armies that he's just scavenged from various places, and he's recreated like the Battle of the Blackfire Pass and defense of Keller's Keep and all this, and it's like he's just doing it himself. I'm like, wow, dude, he's just rolling for like this entire army, and it's like, and he makes it interesting. It's like, wow, you actually did all this stuff, and you're using all kinds of terrain. He's got the battle mat out and everything, so yeah, you can do other things.
There's literally nowhere in my house right now that I could unfold the Battlemaster's battle mat.
When I did my videos, I could only fit like a portion of it on my little card table. Yeah. So the only time
we have no floor. Like I couldn't put it on a floor. Yeah. There's no floor that has anywhere near enough open space.
With my family, my sister's house, we've used like
pretty big
pool tables. We've used like there's this device that you can use for like photography. Like it's like a hula hoop with canvas stretched over it. We put that on top of like a dining table, so like the edges go out, and you can put the battle mat on. But I mean, I've taken like poster boards and I've like stacked them up to try to make like a flat enough surface. I mean, yes, it's like eventually you end up doing the wargamer thing where you just take a bunch of sawhorses and some plywood and just like lay it all out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have this. If I had a better place, that would be one of the first things to do after getting like an actual workshop, because I just use my kitchen. Having like a dedicated game space.
Plywood on the kitchen table.
Yeah, it's like, come on, you just spilled ketchup on my my army. Well, okay, they're all vampires now. or something. It's like, oh, I was going to paint him red anyway. It's like, throw a little mustard over here. Let's mix that up. Yeah. Well, wargaming, yeah, has its downsides. I guess I could have become like a Warhammer 40K guy, and I could have spent all that on fancy armies. Instead, I spent the money on HeroQuest stuff. It's like, all right, well, whatever you feel like as far as the hobby goes. Yeah, so, well, when you guys do get at OrcQuest, post your reviews, post your unboxings. I forgot about the Cthulhu orc. So you've actually got another
I do
joke.
have one other thing I need to say, because I've spent a lot of time lately ragging on like Hasbro as a company.
Yeah.
The issue is not really the company. The issue is like Five Guys or less.
Oh, the Wizards of the Coast people.
I'm not sure if it includes Chris Cox at Hasbro.
Oh, because it's
got to.
Yeah, the CEO. Okay.
But I mean, it is quite possible that it was literally like 3 or 4 people between Hasbro and their Wizards of the Coast division. Because, like, I know people at Wizards of the Coast. I know them personally. They're good people.
Yeah,
and they are so pissed.
This is the tension, I think, that fortunately has largely become inevitable in our kind of ultra consolidated, like,
10-cent
world where just like this there's like these tiny number of huge companies that own basically everything. Like, it's like,
and
you look at Hasbro's,
all of it.
Well, you look at Hasbro's portfolio, it's like these guys own Dungeons and Dragons, they own Magic the Gathering, they own HeroQuest, they own Monopoly, they own the Transformers.
Ironic.
They are the Monopoly Monopoly.
It's like, and
Clue, Risk.
And it's like, when you're under the thumb of that kind of, right, you don't have the freedom to just design the most fun product that you can design.
When you're hungry
you've got these people putting their foot on your neck saying, it's got to be just fun enough, but it has to have all these hooks in it to keep getting the customers to open wallets. It's the same thing that's infected video gaming, and it's just endemic now, right? Where it's like the game is mandated from when it's greenlit, right? Like the execs are saying, hey, make sure you put in an abundant number of avenues for monetization.
Well, at least back in the day,
it can't just be make the best game.
Yeah, at least back in the day, you knew that you would put in the quarter and you get to play the game. Like, that's what it was. But yeah, it's like, I'll buy this $60 game and then I'll spend like $200 on DLC and microtransactions to stay competitive, and then they'll cancel the game after 2 years, release another version of it, and get me back on that until I give up.
And all these games will like cease functioning once the server that the company runs that they make you phone home to for no good reason shuts down.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's like, if you want
this D&D
book good stuff, if you want good stuff, increasingly I'm just finding, like, outside of a few kind of isolated examples, and I think for now at least, like, HeroQuest is one where it doesn't feel like they're under pressure from Hasbro.
They're
but
probably
if it gets
not
big enough,
they're under pressure because of I mean, like I said, I will not ask in Carmine to offer an opinion on this because he can't talk about it. I'm sure.
That
he would be stupid to put that out there where it could be traced back to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless it was his last day at the
it would be very
If he wants to,
probably a
non-disparagement
clause.
Yeah,
because like someone like Stephen Baker, okay, he gets these gigs doing contract work or whatever, but he's welcome. Like, if everybody hated him or thought that this guy's not trustworthy, he wouldn't get those gigs, presumably. So you still got to play the game.
So I'm not
burn the bridge.
I've kind of set my my username over on the Avalon Hill server to something that sort of indicates where I stand, and something that that they won't feel like they need to toss me out of the server for just having, that as a username. But if I were to say something over there, I just haven't had anything to say because I've been
Shocking.
honestly pretty upset.
Oh,
yeah.
The fact that you're so angry that you had nothing to say, that's saying something.
Yeah, well, but I don't want to put them in a position where they have to do something like toss me off the server.
Mm-hmm.
Because eventually, if people are actually mad enough that this is going to hurt the company's bottom line, they will do something to... I mean, it's quite possible that the 6th edition of D&D will just not be open source. That's fine. It will be bad for the company. I think they will...
Yeah,
I think it'll be 4th edition all over again.
I think that's the thing that's so funny about this, is that they tried all this before and it backfired horribly, and it's like, why
but the guy
are they
who's
expecting to get
on doing it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And this guy, apparently, from leaks we've seen, is just so arrogant. He has never played a game of D&D in his life. And he's going around, I know gamers. I work for companies where we made games and that was all we... They made mobile games, video games, microtransaction bullshit. Lots of it. And that's what he did. That was what he did for a living. I know what gamers want. Don't tell me what this game needs to have.
They want to be.
And he's like that at every meeting based on leaks. And at least 5 different people who have been releasing leaks say that's just how this guy is.
Wow.
Well, he doesn't know, or doesn't care, that after the game was open sourced, this was attempted, and it didn't work.
Well, and
he's
that
hard on the brand at this point.
Most people think that the open sourcing was what led to the massive boom in adoption, right? Like, I mean, it's sort of, is there a way to definitively prove that? Probably not. But yeah, it seems overwhelmingly likely.
I could walk into my friendly local game store and there would be a wall. And I'm not talking like a bookshelf that's 6 feet wide. I'm talking a wall that's like 15 feet wide, full of RPG books of all different kinds of systems.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts.
Now it's all D20.
Now it's all now it is all basically there's you still find things like Fate, you still find Fantasy Age.
There's some Savage World stuff.
World stuff. Shadowrun is still a thing. GURPS is still a thing, but they're a very small thing.
Yeah.
The lion's share, like I don't use anything that is based on Google Chrome because 80% of the market should not be a Google web browser, given that Google is not a nice player.
Hey,
they shouldn't have that much control.
I agree.
But that's the way it is with D&D.
I want to acknowledge a few things here in the chat. Mm-hmm. So Ribby's been talking, and thank you, Comrade Polsky, for showing up. We were talking about how great you are at knocking those bots out quickly. But Ribby is saying, comparing OrcQuest to Deep Rock Galactic, the DRG Kickstarter was wildly successful too. They also released the full rule book, a full gameplay video of scenario being played through, and the game was made available via Tabletop Simulator prior to the Kickstarter ending, so you could try it out. That's cool. I thought that was an incredible selling point. And the game was actually really, really fun, so I backed it. My experience with Battle Masters is the Board James video. Yeah, and my response was, listen, I'm entertained by Board James just like AVGN and all that, but it's not an infomercial. It's or a documentary. It's
an entertainment piece.
It's entertainment, yeah. He gets stuff wrong, like, all the time. And I think that's fine, but it's like some people think that he's like an expert on that stuff, and he's not. Which is also fine, but yeah, I have more of a problem with some of his fans, like, kind of overblowing it. But yeah, I was entertained by that. The whole joke for Board James was, oh, the kid doesn't have the attention span to learn how to play HeroQuest, which is sad. But yeah, Battle Masters, is pretty fun. I've played it a handful of times. I would say
Played it
though
a bunch as a kid. I haven't played it in decades.
See, I
but-
never had it as a kid, and because I was
Yeah.
satisfied with HeroQuest. But over time, I thought, well, this is an interesting game. I'd like to try it, but it was too expensive. So when I found like a really good deal, I jumped on it. And
Yeah.
I feel like the build quality is not as good as HeroQuest. The plastic feels like cheaper and stuff.
Yeah,
and
no, I would say the minis are not.
I had to use a
as
lot of sticky
solid.
pack. Yeah, because people buy it thinking, oh, I'll get an army of really cool miniatures. It's like, yeah, they're not.
No, they're. I
quite
mean,
as
they are
good.
not. They are not even. They were not even up to the standard of the tabletop plastic of the time.
But I mean, I printed out like new stickers
And the
for
tabletop
shields.
plastic at the time was not great.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I mean. Is that the plastic, like the plastic that
Mhm.
GW uses now, is pretty darn good. I mean, expensive as all hell, but
now I can say I've played a war game because I
yeah,
played
it wasn't that good that back then. Yeah, it's.
And tactics
I will
wise,
say
you could say
it's-
just you're drawing cards, so it
Yeah,
is a lot of
it's-
luck.
It is way more luck based than.
I mean,
I
rolling
think
dice is luck based too, but yeah, you have it. It feels
Dice-
a lot more random.
Yeah, dice are weighted in a way that makes the outcomes, somewhat predictable within a certain range. Like the thing with Battle Masters is like if you're lucky enough to get like 4 turns in a row, you're just going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other joke, Ribby, is that Board James is portraying these adults who have childlike personalities playing the game. So it's like the 10-year-old kids had the patience to play HeroQuest and Battle Masters, but Mike Matei's character didn't. So it's like, okay,
Mother blanker Mike.
yeah, that guy's
Yeah, I
kind of. You know what? I'm just not even going to get into it. But yeah, the people that worship James Rolfe and his company, it's like, come on, don't worship celebrities in general. Is my rule.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm
That's
going to say.
a
There are
good rule.
very,
That's the
very
rule.
few of them that deserve it.
Yes, most do not.
And truly, does anybody deserve to be worshipped? Any human being on this earth?
I mean, I kind of feel like I do, but beyond that, not really.
Burn
You know what I
him.
mean?
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and the serious note. Okay, so let's see. Ribby says thought it wasn't until the 2021 version we got beyond like Quest 3. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think prior to the remake's release, I had played all of the game system multiple times, or at least I think the first 5 or 6 quests we'd played multiple times. The trial we played a ton because
God.
you get
I know
those
that one
total
by
party
heart.
kills.
First quest. Yeah.
My turn. I mean, we have all these character sheets where it's like, okay, I can see what happened here. Like everybody died in in the trial, and so we played it again. We remixed it again, and we have like, all these cool quests that we made. A good portion of them are just remixes of the trial. But then we played all of Return of the Witch Lord, which I thought was awesome. Then we played Keller's Keep, and it pissed me off, and I almost quit the game, and I was a sore loser back then. Because it was like, dang, they're just trying to screw you over, like over and over again. And Zargon is like, it's not me, it's what they wrote. It's like, you're right. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yep.
Keller's Keep is not as much of a classic in my opinion as
Keller's
Return of the Witch
Keep
Lord.
assumes you've got, a bunch of adventurers, and
you can
3 of them are
afford-
walking into your dungeon with crossbows.
You can afford to have the rug pulled out from under you and you fall down a flight of stairs into a pit of
3
acid.
of them, 3 of your heroes walking with crossbows that can hit the diagonals around them.
Yep.
Meh.
Yeah. Well, so I've learned quite a bit since then, but yeah. Other than that, I mean, I remember in 2002, I found the Hasbro customer care page, and it was like, oh, I can just print out the Elf Quest pack and the Barbarian Quest pack, even though the Elf Quest pack was missing the Alchemist shop, like they forgot to scan it. Like I never played those, and before the remakes versions of those came out, I mean, we started playing. I think we played the first Elf Quest, and we still haven't finished it. The Avenger Returns. Or the Sword of Incredible Size.
You mean the Sovereign Sword?
Sovereign Sword.
I brought the Avenger back.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and see,
I think I have mentioned more than from time to time. I'm remixing every official quest book.
Where's Iron Man? Where's Thor? I don't get it. What's the Avenger?
Yeah,
This doesn't make any sense. There's more than one. I want a refund. Like, is that what they were thinking, or?
I don't know.
One of Marvel's lawyers was like, change that. What? But it's my property.
It seems unlikely. That's not a trademark violation. Like,
I mean,
Avengers,
you've got the Avengers. Like, yeah, was it?
Avenger is way too generic a term, right? Like, they only would hold any rights to it in the context of superhero teams. Like, a sword in a fantasy board game is not going to raise any eyebrows.
I've got a gun that's called Darth Vader. I mean, it's not that blatant.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons has had a sword
name
archetype
got changed just to be safe. I mean, part of all of this
risk averse.
Yeah, a lot of the people who have made like retro clones of D&D are basically, they're like, I didn't use most of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff to make this anyway. There might be, I don't know, a couple of lines that were taken from it. So they're going in and they're like scrubbing that out and rewriting stuff. But then they're like, oh, we have a magic missile. It's different than the D&D magic missile, but it's still a magic missile. It is, an energy bolt.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do?
Enchanted projectile.
And it's like, leave it. You don't have to change. Well, I don't know. We should make arcane arrow. And then everybody's like, okay, yeah, change it to that because that sounds cooler than magic missile anyway.
Yeah.
Sovereign sword is dumb.
Greek fire.
They probably didn't need to change it, but if they wanted to change it, whatever.
The sovereign sword, that's what the humans call it, but we know it. In the original Elven tongue is the Avenger.
Here's the fun question. I'm looking at Quest 2 right now. I'm actually just starting to start working on the... Should I bring the original objective of from the development notes of the second quest back?
Hell yeah. You like that grim dark future where there is only war.
The sword's beater and biter.
Well, so we won't spoil it here, but the original lore for Quest 2 was much darker.
Much darker.
Much more grim. And they even said in the notes, it's like, this is a kid's game. Like, let's not do this. But it makes a lot more logical sense when you play it.
Yeah.
And
this for HeroQuest?
Yeah.
I will have to take a look at that because I don't remember
the way it is now. The plot is you're supposed to find these two courtly attendants for Queen Torellia and escort them to safety. But there's no miniature for them. There's no tile for them. They're supposed to follow you back to the quest, and when you find them, you've already eliminated all the monsters in the quest. And I'll leave it at that. I'm leaving it at that. So yeah, do your own research on that one. Okay, so
attendance, huh?
Attendance, yeah. So here we're watching a lot of footage of this guy like poking these miniatures with a stick. Is this something a lot of people do, or is this just what this guy does? Like he's trying
no idea what he's doing right now. Is he cleaning off the miniatures?
There's people that pay a lot of money to see this. No, I'm kidding. It's like, yes, keep poking those miniatures. Yes.
Oh, baby, give me some more of that.
Good. No, I assume he's just checking them for flaws or whatever with if those are resin or something. But yeah, it kind of looks like bendy resin. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's a prototype, or maybe that is the way the final product is.
I think he's just cleaning them off.
Yeah, he's gonna paint them. Yeah, when I was doing my so I bought the Warhammer Fire Team pack from Barnes & Noble, and I was just like painting the figures, and I was going to use them for Space Crusade. But like you get those little nubs, and like some of the nubs, like, okay, I could clean it off with a razor blade. I just left it in, and just like, yeah, it's a piece of shrapnel stuck in him. Whatever, I'll just paint it. But yeah, you may be like, okay, I got to get rid of the mold lines. It's got to be perfect. So people have different objectives.
Games Workshop does sell a tool that has a sharp corner but not a sharp edge. Basically, it is the back of the
X-Acto knife.
Back of the knife tool, essentially.
Okay.
And it is designed to be a back of the knife with a sharp corner to scrape those mold lines away.
Yeah. Okay. Because I assume in the factory they just have the injection molding machine and they print the whole sprue, or they
Sure.
fill the whole sprue at once, and then you've got these like chunks. When we had HeroQuest, it was so easy to twist those things right out because it was just one piece. Each figure was like, except for the gargoyle.
Yep.
But yeah, with
Except
these Warhammer, it's like
cut it. You should cut it.
pieces.
But of course, none of us did that when we were
no.
8.
So like
I
the
didn't know to
barbarians
do
got
that when I was
chunks,
12.
spikes.
Simpler
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
Yeah, the bases all have spikes coming out the side, but yeah, who cares?
Well, that's the other thing.
It's worth more if it's got the
most
original
part-
spikes.
For the most part, the sprue was only attached to the bases. You weren't damaging the model potentially by tearing it off.
No.
Whereas,
It's really
the
simple.
sprues for the more complex stuff the more complex modern stuff, the sprues are attached wherever it's convenient. It's like, you can't just
still,
tear that loose.
For these, it was pretty good. I mean, it's usually like, okay, the bottom of the next spike, the bottom of the boot, the tip of the gun. It's like, okay, it's pretty logical.
Well, I had an orc set from the new Age of Sigmar range that it's so detailed and so customizable that it comes in so many pieces.
It's ridiculous.
So they can't just attach it. It's like all these little doodads that go into making each guy look different, and it's like you can't.
I gotta step away for a minute, but I've got a question about Age of Sigmar when I get back, so I will be back in a moment.
See you soon.
But so it's just like these
I'm just-
pieces have to be connected to the sprue in all kinds of awkward ways, where you just have to be super careful about clipping them off.
Yeah.
And then you got to like file the nub down, and it's just like this is so tedious.
I was watching PSK Studios Twitch stream where he and this friend of his, this military guy, he was just cursing like the whole time because you could see like pieces, like he's working on these tiny, he's got these big brawny hands and he's got these tiny little pieces of gray plastic that he's trying to like fit together and snap and it goes flying and he's like I felt for him. It was just like, yep. But he kept on going. It's like, I'm gonna get this done. So I want to acknowledge these guys. This is Quackalope on YouTube. They're doing obviously a very flashy video coverage of this OrcQuest once again. Yeah, the hobby is fun, but yeah, I really wanted to get these guys ready, and I'm so grateful that I actually was able to afford, get a great deal from Board Game Geek. Again, not a sponsored video, but if you're looking for games, Board Game Geek, the geek market, better than eBay, better than Amazon, better than Alibaba or whatever.
Secondhand stuff.
Mercari. I mean, yeah, if you happen to find a set in your thrift store like King Kenneth did, snap it up because you might never get that opportunity again unless you live in the UK. But yeah, the figures is like, okay, so the Marines are like, I think the commanders are like 8 pieces that you gotta, and they're supposed to be push fit. But since I spray painted everything, the little pegs are like too thick, so I had to like shave the pegs to make them fit. But I mean, it has like just a great finish with the spray paint. I mean, it feels like almost like the surface of a car. Like it's like, yes, that's what I wanted. Because I've seen hundreds of pictures of really well painted miniatures, but the armor looks like it's painted with like a brush, like you can see the strokes and everything. I mean, I know you can't see it when you're playing the game on the table, but when you hold it up close, you're like, oh.
Yeah, when you're holding it up for a high resolution camera, sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess technically I'm doing tabletop. I'm not doing tabletop plus with my painting, but I could always add stuff to it later on after I've done the basic. And I'm pretty pleased with it. But yeah, I realize with Warhammer, like there's people that spend all their time painting and preparing and not much time actually playing. Whereas for me, it's the playing. Yeah. The other stuff is just a means.
It depends on what type of competition you're trying to play. Like official GW sponsored tournaments, your army must be painted. Mm-hmm. And the models have to be, I think, at least like 51% a GW model of the appropriate type. Like, so you can do conversions and kit bashes and stuff, but it's like the guts of this has to be GW parts.
So you got your 3 rattle cans. You got white, red, green. 1 pass white, 1 pass red, 1 pass green. The Christmas army.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people who do that. Although I think a lot of tournaments, also have like best painted army prizes and stuff
you beat
like
them
that.
with the joke army.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so none of this is sponsored. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
These games might not be fun for you at all. But from what I've seen so far, this OrcQuest, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bits. So if there's any downside to it, it's just keeping track of all that, keeping all that organized. I can just imagine people selling, oh, you got to buy the $50 phone to hold it all in the box, But it looks like a pretty good idea. It's clearly designed for people who liked HeroQuest a lot and want another spin-off game. So it's like a passion project for sure.
Yep.
And yeah, if this were not going to retail, and this was going to be like, oh yeah, it's $500 on eBay, forget it. Like, I'm just never gonna own it.
Yep.
I mean, it looks. I'm trying to think. It reminds me a lot of TseuQuest in terms of like the production values of it. Except, I mean, there's some things they don't have, like the quest book doesn't have like the spiral binding. They don't have the little gears built into the cards. I don't think. I think you're just supposed to put dice on top of that, like do like a wound counter kind of thing. But anyway, it has that modern game look, even though
I enjoyed the fact that it was 1 to 6 players, no DM.
Yeah, even though playing the
really
DM
cool.
is so much fun, but yeah, it is cool to have just like we all just want to be on the same team.
Well, I think the other thing about, and I don't know whether OrcQuest will have this property or not. I plugged a game on your Discord the other day that is one of maybe the only game I think that I've ever seen where I enjoy it just as much whether I'm playing it by myself as whether I'm playing it with a full group of 4.
Yeah,
most games, it's like it'll say like it's for 2 to 4 players, and it's like, yeah, but when you only have 2, it's not really like, like
it's
I've
you
played
versus me, and you've got 4 lives, and I'm trying to kill you, but I'm kind of not.
Yeah, it's like not even talking HeroQuest, just games in general, right? It'll say for 2 to 4 players, and it's like, but when there's only 2 of you, game mechanics don't really allow the game to shine because
Space Crusade
you're just constantly alternating back and forth, right? Where the game really works when you don't get another turn for a while after it's been your turn because there's enough other players who have to go.
Well, some people hate that though. It's like, all this waiting, I'm just going to go get Cheetos and Mountain Dew.
Well, right, but then buy a game that's designed exactly 2 players. Like when my wife and I want to just play something quick and dirty, play 7 Wonders Duel because it's a specifically 2-player optimized kind of thing inspired by the original 7 Wonders. We played the 2-player 7 Wonders variant rules, and they were okay a couple times, and then it was like, this is going to get old, isn't it?
I wonder how often those dice don't fall exactly on the squares, and you've got people arguing over, like, well, I guess you just put it where it lies, so I guess it doesn't matter that much. Never mind.
But Too Many Bones, I don't think ever seen another game where it's like, I just don't care which player count it is because it works equally well, and that's a
strength.
That is all the players no DM game. You're all on a team.
Something else I'm noticing about this OrcQuest, it has the feel of HeroQuest in the sense that, like I've said this before, like when I go into a game shop, like usually I'm browsing because I can't afford, or just buy a couple small things. I'll always look at the back of the box, and the first thought I have is disappointment because I'm like comparing it in my mind to HeroQuest. Like I remember how much plastic was in HeroQuest. Well, in HeroScape, I guess the same way. Battle Masters, it's like the box is mostly plastic, it feels like, and then whereas nowadays it's usually like you get a couple of plastic miniatures that are good, but then it's mostly just a ton of cardboard because it's too expensive.
Ton of cardboard, yep.
Yeah, it's too expensive. And in some games, it's almost like I feel like you're just playing craps. That's really what you're doing. And this other stuff is just visual fun while you're doing that. Whereas HeroQuest, I felt like everything had a purpose. I mean, yes, you could say the furniture doesn't always serve a purpose unless you write it into the quest.
The furniture
takes up space. It's decoration.
I think the furniture, though, and and I'm not the first one to make this point, but it was a big distinguisher at the time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like no one else was doing that.
Yeah,
and it really made the
empty
game
rooms.
stand out.
Empty rooms are just cardboard, like it was
Or
just drawn
the
on.
art was drawn on the room and it was two-dimensional,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's striking.
having the entire dungeon come alive really made this game something remarkable.
Which game?
HeroQuest.
Ah,
HeroQuest.
I came in mid-sentence.
RantCast.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So we're watching a video now on the RantCast here of these guys. This is Quackalope on YouTube. I just picked it because I was just trying to get some visual stuff. This is OrcQuest, which has been fully funded, and some of the pledgers are in this stream right now. We've got iKarith, we've got Karningul, we've got, who else do we have? I'm losing track. Ribby. I'm special ed, so these dudes are absurdly into it. Yeah, they are. Well, that's the thing. There's a certain. I mean, I have no doubt they really are that enthusiastic, but that's kind of like the YouTuber thing. It's like, welcome, Whimsical Will and his wild ways. It's going to tell you all about this game. It's so wacky.
What is the video you're looking at?
Oh, this is about OrcQuest Warpath Resurrected.
Yes. The name of the channel.
Oh, Quackalope.
Quackalope.
And yes, I am playing
Found
it
it?
at 1.5 speed, so they're even more animated than. It's like whatever kind of coffee these guys are selling, I want some. Yeah, and it has the square bases, similar to HeroQuest, but of course they got sharp corners, so it's not exactly the same.
And bigger than HeroQuest bases, I think. They're 1-inch squares.
Yeah. I actually reprinted my classic HeroQuest board with 1-inch squares, and I've used that exclusively in all my streams. I haven't used the new board yet at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks great, but it just works for me. It's not shiny.
It's a game board. It will survive as well as, a game board will survive. If you have something else, you can keep your fancy game board that came in the box that you can't buy a replacement for without buying a whole box. You will, if you've got an alternate board, use it.
One thing I'm noticing, I can see some of those pieces look like they're warped already. One problem with like smaller
thing.
Yeah. Oh well, unless he's just got it overlapping, like that piece on the right there.
Oh yeah.
I have that problem with Space Crusade. It's like that you're supposed to build. Oh, sorry for the
room.
Oh, this guy. Yeah. It's like with Space Crusade, you're supposed to put like these cardboard walls on top of the 4 boards, and when the boards warp, like it shifts everything and it doesn't quite work. I mean, it looks fine on camera, but like when I'm trying to like move everything around, it's just really annoying. Okay, so this guy does a 4K unboxing. This was one of the influencers that had Board Game Coffee. He had one of the those early sets of HeroQuest where it was the painted dwarf, it was the dice box.
In OrcQuest, he got a full set, and they did a giveaway thing as well on their channel.
So this guy's got the hookup. That is a big box. But see, like you go into a friendly local game store and it's just like wall-to-wall boxes like this, covered in plastic. But then you flip it over and it's like there's like 5 miniatures in it and lots and lots of cardboard and dice and cards. Whereas
nothing gives the same kind of bang for your buck that HeroQuest did back in the day.
And it's like I could imagine that contributing to its downfall if indeed that was the. I mean, because that's what they say. It's like, well, it was probably too expensive. Like, they'll never come out and admit it. It's like, it was probably too expensive at the time to justify continuing it, as opposed to some conspiracy or...
Well, this again gets to the whole, like...
That looks like it's hard to open.
This sort of, like open, like the owned by kind of big publicly traded corporation versus a company that kind of owns itself. It's like, in theory...
I'm so sorry. Let me just pause it. This box, look how long it takes to open. So the HeroQuest game system box, the remake, it takes like a minute to open and a minute to close. It's really like goofy. But I noticed with the Mage of the Mirrors, they put the linen finish all around the box, and I thought, why did they do that? That's so weird. What a waste of time and effort. But it actually makes it easier to open and close. Just little tiny little changes as it goes. All right, say what you're going to say. I
was saying, right?
Minute details.
I mean, I assume, right, that they weren't selling HeroQuest at a loss, because that would just make no sense.
No,
Right.
they never were.
But yeah, I imagine it was probably not a super high margin product.
Mhm.
But it's like, if you believe in your product and you're still making money on it, and you're not like,
product
you don't have
margin,
someone,
not profit
right?
margin, product.
You don't have someone putting a boot on your neck saying, grow, grow, grow. It's like, well, it's a sustainable product. We can keep it out there. We're still making more on it than we're spending.
And that's
the
what I would
reason
want
why
to see.
HeroQuest was ended in the first place. I'm sure that if anybody was there,
Spoilers.
they would say so. Ultimately, a product like that, once it's no longer selling, because there was a point where it did sell, and then there was a point it didn't really. When it gets to the point it's not really selling anymore,
Of course.
you stop making it, because it is wasted money if you're not going to sell what you make.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts being a thing like the copies are sitting on the store shelves. They're not selling. They're taking up space.
That you could
So
use for
eventually,
stuff that is selling.
Eventually they get sent back to the to the company, because it's like we're not going to sell this.
Well, now that you say that, I was realizing there were additions, and I never knew about them until Yield In, but there's versions of the furniture where it's like more hollow, like they use less plastic, and those are towards the end of its lifespan. So they were looking for ways to cut corners at one point. So that implies that, yeah, that was starting to happen. But then why did it happen? Were they just not marketing it well enough? Because you think they could just have endless growth. I mean, why do people still buy Monopoly? Yeah, they make new Monopoly editions, I suppose.
At some point, people just moved on. I mean,
sure, nothing lasts forever.
The HeroQuest never really established its own brand back in the day.
It was just like a gateway game.
It was a gateway, and it was a gateway to D&D, not a gateway to Warhammer, which is why Games Workshop doesn't care about it.
Warhammer Quest.
Yeah. It ended up being a gateway to playing D&D, not to playing games that made Games Workshop large amounts of money. They hoped it would be, but
at the time,
worked against them.
Space Hulk,
right? And at the
Space
time,
Hulk was successful, and it got many editions. Yeah.
If indeed it's true, right, that it was a gateway to D&D, at the time that wasn't making Hasbro money either.
Yeah, because they were competitors.
Hasbro didn't own it yet.
Right, because TSR was still its own company back then.
But the thing is, D&D was doing phenomenally well right up to and after even the point that TSR went under.
What was doing well?
TSR was very mismanaged.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was all kinds of legal crap going on, too, wasn't there?
Yep.
Between Gygax and his...
Yep, to the point that, they sued... I mean,
peers.
Basically, Lorraine Williams took over the company, and I don't know all the details, so somebody is going to say he's wrong, and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yep.
And it's possible that I don't. What I do know is that Lorraine Williams bought a controlling interest in the company. She had the power to control what the company did, and she thought that there were all these things. It's funny. She thought there were all these things out there that were detracting from D&D making the money that it ought to, and that she needed to shut that down so the money would come to D&D where it belonged. Sound familiar?
Yeah. I'm gonna
everything old is new again.
Oh yeah, nothing new under the sun. Chasing after wind. Okay, so Ribby is saying, let's see, for OrcQuest, just big, tall, fat, lots of stuff jammed in. Okay, don't take that out of context. And a full second box of all the expansions. I remember seeing advertisements for the expansions in the original HeroQuest materials, but I never actually saw them in ads or in stores. So that was a disappointment even as a kid. So I want to say one thing about this.
I got some of them in stores
they,
as a kid.
They did exist in stores, but
Yeah.
the story that you usually hear from people is, oh, my dad went on a business trip and he brought it back. Or I went to this like obscure store where they had an import section and they had advanced HeroQuest and all this stuff. But with the Frozen Horror and the ElfQuest pack, I mean, there's stories of, and I think I swear this, maybe I just dreamt this, but the rejection letter that the kid got was on eBay, where it was like, sorry, this is no longer in production. But please check out, some of our other products.
Right.
Like they mailed away, the $10 or the $10.50 plus $2 shipping for the Frozen
And they
Horror.
got it back with them saying we don't have it anymore.
They destroyed it. And that's why it's
I
so rare.
I remember asking
Big ouch.
I don't remember exactly when it was, but I sent them a message at one point asking if they had any stock left to replace broken stuff.
Oh.
Where it was like all these things are damaged, and they were like,
say?
no, we don't have any of that anymore.
Well, one of our members on Discord, I think it was Do My Montalto.
Hasbro, you could have made $5 a pop selling new torches for those damn sorcerer's tables.
Yeah, my torch is broke. Yep.
Yeah,
You'd be trillionaires. Come on.
Do My Montalto, he had one broken skeleton, and they sent him a bag of like 5 or 6, I think. So
for the new one or the old one?
For the new one.
So, yeah, I mean,
so some things have changed a little bit.
I mean, I will say for all the shit that they're deservedly getting, their customer service has been pretty fantastic for this.
They're doing what they can. Yeah, and the Spanish players, they got it's like, just keep the cards you got. We're going to send you some new ones that are translated a little bit better.
Yeah,
for free. It's like, great. Yep. That's how you retain customer loyalty. Whereas these other companies let the buyer beware. Screw you then. It's like, we'll just rip off the next person in line.
I've had to put in 2 tickets, I think, and this is something that seems like it's gotten better. But the original Mythic drives, there were lots and lots of reports of people getting miniatures that had been assembled wrong or were broken or whatever. And the plastic sheets that they were stored in for travel were so tight. Like, I cut mine apart to make sure I could get all my minis out without damaging.
Wow.
Because it was just like, I don't know how I'm going to pop this thing out without it snapping. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Maybe I was underestimating the resilience of the flexible plastic. But
they don't look as
I heated mine up with the hairdryer at the bottom so that the candy tray would deform slightly. And pulled them out. And I said, I will go and buy some Felder battle foam for this.
I'm just going to make.
Existed.
I've got an electric carving knife, and I've got some furniture foam.
Yeah, I'm going to make my own.
Time is valuable.
None of the, not even Felder's solutions really. I looked at them, and they don't really match exactly what I want.
Yeah, it's
especially because one of the things I want to do is build some future proofing into the. There's not room
in the box for future.
I'm not trying to cram everything into the one box. I'm going to keep the expansions separate, including Witchlord and Keller's Keep.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have any desire to have to cram all of those components into the main box.
I actually have one of those plastic totes that you roll under your bed, and that's what I put my HeroQuest stuff in. But there is, and this is again not an endorsement, but there's a place around here called the Container Store where you can buy let's say you buy a really high quality cardboard box. I think it's for putting let's say a wedding dress inside. You can use that. And I actually bought one, and I'm like, I'm going to decorate the outside and I'm going to put the HeroQuest stuff inside. I haven't done it yet, but yeah, those little projects are fun.
By decorate, he means he's going to paint it, which means he's going to get a very large paint bucket.
And I'm going to throw it in there. And I'm going to pull it out with the tweezers. And it's done. It's like, this guy is crazy. Not endorsed. So I want to say one thing here to what Ribby was saying about the disappointment with not getting the ElfQuest pack and the Barbarian Quest pack. And just kind of
my friend had Barbarian, and it steamed the hell out of me that I couldn't find it.
Yeah. But what I want to say is it's so interesting seeing Hasbro or Avalon Hill's reaction and evolution in response to the whole thing, because they knew that we wanted HeroQuest and they knew that we didn't want it screwed up, so they released it as is. They knew that people were spending exorbitant amounts of money for the Barbarian Quest pack on eBay, so they released it as is, not realizing that the reason people wanted it is
broken.
because it's very broken. But the reason people wanted it is because we had those flyers inside Keller's Keep: Return of the Witch Lord saying, "Hey, there's this new pack," and we were so disappointed. It wasn't so much that we had it, we played it, and we liked it. It was the idea of this is the thing that I always wanted. The thing I couldn't get. Yeah. The Red Ryder BB gun. Now I can finally buy it.
Also, I mean, I think that's part of it. Like, I knew that it was broken,
but
because we leafed through the quest book. Like, you could tell that it was broken, but it was nice to have something to build off that really would actually be a challenge to complete. And it also just was those things were packed with so much more value than the first 2 quest packs were.
Yeah.
The only new thing that you got in Keller's Keep. Yeah, but the only new thing you really got was tiles.
Me.
You got some interesting new tiles, and that was it.
I almost said Gesundheit, but yeah.
Whereas these ones were like all these new minis.
But as a kid, when you saw that advertisement in the back of that little pamphlet,
you wanted it.
You thought, "Oh, dude, I could go to Kmart and I could buy that."
Yeah.
I mean,
it would have been great to get it for $10, no doubt.
Yeah,
but honestly, if I had played it, I would have played it according to the rules, and I would have been pissed. Like, I was the kid that was like whining and complaining and threatening to quit the game because of Keller's Keep. I would have had just a complete meltdown if I was playing the Barbarian Quest pack. Oh, the Yeti grabbed you. Game over. What?
You mean? I think you mean the Yeti.
The Yeti.
I really like the response that Avalon Hill had for the Yeti. Seriously, if it makes the game not fun, don't play it that way.
Yeah, but one thing I do want to point out about that is that it explicitly says that it's an automatic effect. So it's not that your Zargon is choosing to do that ability. But yes, their solution was elegant. You just withdraw that power. He doesn't have the ability to do that anymore for these particular quests. I still like trying to reverse the hold with dice from the designer doc. And then that led to the wrestling moves, and then the rest is history. As far as our Twitch stream is concerned. And it seems like just such an absurd thing because you're playing this serious game with all these serious rules, and then you're like, and you pile drive.
And I haven't been around for the explanation of how the wrestling moves work, but
it's just a bonus. It's just a concession to the fact that rolling 3 white shields or more is kind of rare, and even rarer still to roll 3 black shields. So anytime that happens, you basically just get a free hit. And the only caveat is you got to think of something on the fly that corresponds to wrestling. It's like
that was like my
Irish Chinbreaker. I think that's a real one. Sure.
The kind of the way I play in role playing games in general is, if I'm running it, if you can come up with you tell me you have created this character whose background was a farmer, but he knows the celestial language. And I'm like, how the hell? Sell me on this. And if you can come up with any reason why this farm boy is somehow going to know, the language of the higher planes.
Well, maybe he was a shepherd. And he was watching his flock by night. Who knows?
Yeah.
I know it's a little late for a Christmas reference, but still.
I made it. The one that I came up with. It wasn't a great plot hook or anything. It was just the lamest explanation. Well, his dad was when he wasn't in the fields, he had his nose in books, and he was a very spiritual man. And he taught me the language in some of those books because it was a very pretty language. Okay, sold.
Yep.
That's it. I mean, somebody else came up with a much better suggestion recently when I was explaining that's how I view things. And they were suggesting, well, when my dad didn't need me in the fields, my nose was in a book. And my book said, one thing, but my neighbor's books had something else entirely. And it's like, okay, that's better. That's a plot hook for the game.
It's imagination, and I love the uncommon feats. I'm just gonna toot my own horn as far as that goes. Like somebody comes with something really creative, like I do the wall run and I flip over the guy's head and stab him in the back. And it's like when they fail, it's like okay, so you take a complete header, you roll into the hallway. The orcs laugh at you. It's just like, just
basically,
go with it.
You have added board game mechanics to essentially the way people play more freeform D&D and other role-playing games.
Well, and it also reinforces the idea that Zargon can give and he can take away. So sometimes he may screw you over, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I like this guy.
Well, that's because he's actually Mentor.
Yep. Or maybe Mentor is actually Zargon. Yeah,
one of those things.
When I feel like the GM,
maybe Zargon is Mentor from the future.
From the future.
We thought you were Saruman. I am Saruman.
Or what he should have become.
Or what he should have become. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. Well, I just figure if I'm giving the heroes a hint, I'm Mentor, and if I'm trying to kill him, I'm Zargon. So, yeah. Don't trust wizards. All right. Anyway.
Wizard did it.
Wizard did it.
Wizard did it.
I had a question about Age of Sigmar.
Oh yeah.
See,
shoot.
Because Games Workshop are such bastards, I don't buy Games Workshop products unless I absolutely have no other choice. If they're the only people that make it. So, there's also the fact that a lot of their stuff basically just is available for about 30 seconds and then gone forever. So this whole Age of Sigmar thing, I understand it's kind of a replacement for Warhammer Fantasy, but it's also kind of not. And there's
it's
pretty Valhalla. Aren't they just like fighting in the afterlife, like after the world?
Not the afterlife. They're like the idea is that they destroyed the old world, and now it's kind of like they call it the mortal realms. So the idea is that there's like a bunch of different planes basically with
the
different
afterlife.
Wait, they worked into the lore the fact that Games Workshop just said, "Screw it, we're not doing this anymore. It doesn't exist."
Well, it's like what was it, Asheron's Call, when they ended the beta, they actually destroyed the planet. So you saw like the apocalypse happening in the game.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of a sweet
They
idea.
did like a whole series of novels, and I think there was some special like Warhammer scenarios that being played in shops at the time. It was called the End Times, and basically it was just creative. This ridiculously over-the-top chaos invasion that just basically wiped out everything and everybody.
It's Ragnarok. It's like, listen, if the gods are going to go, they're going to go out with a bang. So here you go.
Let me guess. These events involve things you could buy during the time period.
I actually don't know if there was. I don't know if there was all that much that was like exclusive to the time period. I think a lot of those models are still around.
14 plus.
I'm just assuming that somehow Games Workshop, being Games Workshop, they managed to somehow monetize the fact that they were being bastards and throwing away the old product lines for the specific purpose of getting you to buy new product lines.
So, they didn't really monetize the End Times. I don't think what they did. But the new system was entirely aimed at them being able to just kind of introduce new stuff without having to justify where it came from. So you get like a bunch of even more steampunky dwarves who ride airships.
I got a flying machine.
I mean,
classic. That is so classic.
Dwarves on airships? I'm down with that.
But it's just that doesn't match. Dwarves were all underground in the old world in Warhammer, right?
Unless the Earth is hollow, and if you go up in the sky, you're actually heading towards the ground. Think about it.
I mean, I'm cool with dwarves being involved with tanks and airships and mechanization. Lally ho!
Well, and they did a lot of sort of spin-off things where they took like some unit or some kind of cultural element of one of the existing things, and we're just like, oh, they're their own faction now. So like the Slayers, the naked dwarves with the big mohawks.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're now the fire. They're now the fires.
Thankfully.
Yeah. They're now the Fire Slayers.
Ah, the
Okay.
Warlords.
They use flaming weapons, and there's an entire faction line for them.
Okay.
And so this was other, and this is all new models.
I've got no problem with the lore and the fact that you maybe have to retcon and recreate the lore once in a while. It's just I got a problem with the company.
What we're seeing right now, sorry guys, what we're seeing right now, this reminds me, this looks like a HeroQuest mod, like right here, the way the dice is laid out, the way the cards are designed. Like some of those mods that are out there, like on Ye Olde Inn, reminds me exactly of this. So you can tell this was made by fans of HeroQuest. Like even if you just were looking at these cards alone. Ribby says
You're
Dungeon
still looking at
Crawler.
orc stuff, or
Entire game is
OrcQuest stuff.
card-based. Yeah, it's like taking this long just to go through everything. Well, of course, he's looking at every single card. It's like we've poked every.
Yeah, I watched
miniature.
a different video. I pulled up a different video and I was through it. So
This guy redid his table because I remember he originally had that felt game table and there was all this lint on it, which I can sympathize. Keeping lint out
Yeah.
of felt, I don't know how to do it. Like I'm always.
I don't know how to do it.
Oh, please share. What's your tip?
I said I don't know how to do it.
Oh, I mean I have a lint brush, but it's like it loosens the felt and then you got to use like a razor to shave it and.
My suggestion, if you would otherwise have something that was like a felt table, and you are like redoing it, cover it in like spandex type material instead of felt type material.
Oh, interesting. I was even thinking about like velvet, but that's a little more expensive, I think.
Velvet's more expensive, and it reflects light weirdly.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the felt, but it's just like, yeah, if you look closely, it's just like, what is that, dandruff? I don't understand. Because things just stick to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just took like I don't know if it's considered a humidor or not, but it's just like a cigar box, a wooden cigar box from Walmart from the craft section for like, I want to say $5. And 33-cent piece of felt, glued it on there, spray painted the outside. And no, I didn't just call it done. I actually threw red paint on it to make it look like blood splatters, and then I did the bullseye shellac over the top.
I actually did use velvet for my, that I made a little dice box basically using like a deep frame.
Oh, sweet.
Like a shadow box frame. I actually got some
you'll have to show
adhesive.
Me that. I don't remember if I've ever seen it.
What I have is like some adhesive velvet. I got some purple velvet that was adhesive backed. Literally just pull it off and stick it down, and put that under the backer for put something on a little bit better than the backer of the frame, and just reassembled the frame without the glass, and that's my dice box.
You can't wash it, but I suppose you could take like a wet washcloth and just like wipe it down.
Yeah, I could.
I mean, of course, with mine, I'm just like, I could just refelt it for another 33 cents if I really had to.
Well, and that's the thing. I had to buy like a pack of this adhesive velvet that was like $8, and I used half a sheet.
Yeah.
So if I need to redo it, I've got a whole pack of the stuff.
Okay, so I want to acknowledge Ribby, and yes, if since I'm not recording the chat, like all the chat will be lost in the replay. So if you want to post,
you have to read the chat.
Discord, yeah. So Ribby's saying that there's a quest for the Lost Pixel is something only available via Game Crafters, recommended by the Dungeon Dive. I've heard of that. Dungeon Crawler, the entire game is card-based, very pricey, but it's got a pure sort of roguelike, there's that term roguelike, element to it as a board/card game. Yep. Okay, well, guys, this has been a great discussion, but I'm thinking, let's see what we have left. I think we're going to have to save I'm just going to wait until StrangeBus is back to do the 2003 anticipated games. I mean, we got the whole year to talk about that. What else do we have here? Let's see. Let me just... as far as topics go, I think we'll save the HeroScape unboxing for another time. What else were we going to talk about? I think that was basically it. Not to shut down the discussion or anything, but was there anything you guys wanted to say
Can't
otherwise?
go
As far
forever.
as can't go
People
forever.
have to sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's very
Yeah.
important. If you're a streamer, I mean, it's tempting to just go, but when it throws off the rest of your week, something's gotta.
Where's my Mage of the Mirror? That's all I gotta say. Come on.
Well,
Oh, you're
and
still waiting for
I'm
it?
so sorry you're still waiting for it.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Honestly,
Well-
it's almost as broken as Barbarian Quest Pack, but the nice thing is they did put the changes in the box. So
Right.
Which
As-
I think I'm going to be reverting.
spray paint your ogres and give them 10 body points, and it's good.
Okay.
I will say that
That's what I did for fun.
the issue with being a streamer and just doing live anything like that, there has been for the past 3 weeks or so, I've been mostly dealing with the Hasbro mess. And there's a guy. He's very much not
there you
impartial.
see the
He's a fan of Pathfinder, and he publishes stuff for 5e because of money. But let's face it, he's a Pathfinder guy, so not unbiased. And he's had Roll for Combat as the channel, and he's had stream after stream after. I'm 4 hours streamed on this license out.
Wow.
I can't. I'm working on other things.
Well, yeah, I'll put stuff in the background when people are doing stuff, and I don't expect people to pay 100% attention to my stuff unless they're actually playing the game.
I watched his 2-hour stream where he had Linda Codega on, and just a chat with her for a couple hours. That I actually watched, but I don't need any more. There's so much
D&D
there.
stuff.
I've got to be able to, I've gotten involved with the group who's working on the Orc license. There's a Discord server for that, and there's people asking questions. We don't even have a draft yet to look at, but we know it will not have a morality clause because we've all agreed that's a trap for everybody, including the people who want to use one.
Yeah. I want to release Offensive Quest, and you're not letting me do that.
Well, we decided that nobody wants racism and sexism and other isms.
But
nobody really wants that out there.
Terms vary by group and by time.
Right.
So,
but also,
yeah.
If you put in a clause that allows you to shut somebody down who's using your stuff for that, what you've done is you have empowered the entire world on the internet to hound you and make you a target if you don't enforce that clause the way they want. So you might say, well, I want to be able to shut that down, but then you're basically having the entire internet able to shut you down.
Yeah.
So that's a trap, and it's not a trap you want to set yourself. So we're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Double-edged sword, basically.
Efforts like that, I have decided that by the end of the year, there will be a D&D 5e compatible rule set that is completely free. No, a drop-in replacement. If you don't have it for some reason and want it for some reason, you will. We're calling it in all but name Legacy of the Dragon's Pact. Because for 23 years, the dragon had a pact with the city until someone decided to break the pact.
I've got a Choose Your Own
Little on the
Adventure
nose.
that has that same plot from the 80s or the early 90s. I'll have to check it out. But it's an official D&D
Jeremy
branded.
Irons' character from the D&D movie. He's broken the pact.
So it's a common trope, I guess.
It is a common trope,
D&D
but I mean,
for me was the cartoon, like the Saturday morning.
Yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons ride.
Yeah.
Cavalier and
For some reason, my weapon is a shield, and we'll never see any. Have you ever noticed that about stuff for kids?
Where was the clear?
You have a sword, and it will never be used on anyone. You will use it to cut rope, and you will use it to.
Well, there was one of the Narnia books had it. It was like you've got a sword, but you're not allowed to use it. So you just use the flat of the sword to humiliate your enemies instead of cutting them down in cold blood.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, I think we're drawing to a close. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us here on the RantCast. Dig it!
We have ranted.
I mean, yeah, you don't get to see Uncle Zargon. You don't get to see TheStrangeBus. But it was a good time. I'm really glad you guys showed up. If you hadn't, I just would have been winging it probably for an hour, and then I probably would have done an unboxing and called it a night. So this was a pleasant surprise.
It was fun.
Yep. So
I'm sorry I got here so late.
you were right on
I
time.
have lots of things to
Just
rant
like a
on.
wizard.
I really do.
Well, there's other RantCasts.
He does.
So Karningul, Ribby, iKarith, and then all the legions of fans out there. I'm so impressed with what we've been able to do with HeroQuest fans on Discord. Like, we're still not as big as Mentor Study. We're nowhere near as big as the Tabletop Simulator one, but I mean, we started from nothing.
Yeah, but those don't usually have much traffic. We have traffic.
We have our own unique thing. I think the Tabletop Simulator one has more people lurking, at least.
Yeah, the other groups have more lurkers, and there's more people who will see stuff.
Yeah.
But we're the group of HeroQuest fans is the group of people who actually are active enough to actually want to talk about this. It's not just
there's
a huge amount of overlap with Ye Old Inn. We're the people who are actually we're the ones who actually play this thing.
We're not just an extension of them. We are our own thing. But yeah, certainly there's definitely a lot of overlap. And I'll post my game stuff in the other chats if I remember to do it. But since it's my Discord, I spend most of my time here, obviously. But I mean, I've got those other Discords open. So, yeah.
I've spent most of my time lately elsewhere, but yeah, generally this is where I spent my time as well. I mean, what I've been neglecting horribly, and I really owe lots of people an apology, is I've been neglecting the Ye Old Inn stuff.
Oh.
I need to get back to that. Hopefully when things calm down a little, I will be back.
I miss
working
your
on that.
snarky posts. They aren't just snarky, but I mean, that's I think.
No, they're snarky enough. They're snarky enough.
I mean, once a person gets to know that, this guy really does know some things and have some interesting stories to tell, it's like, wow, he sure is snarky. I don't deny that I have some of that tendency within myself as well. It's like
I still kind of miss Shadzar. He was a bit intense for a while, but I miss the guy.
I hope he's doing well, whatever is going on.
Me too.
Yep. But
some people get, just they get into a rut where all they can see is one thing, and it's
maybe he
the
decided,
thing that they focus on.
Yeah, and I mean, I know he had family issues going on, but I hope the break was good for him too, because
I hope so.
It just came across that he was really, really angry, and it's like, that can be a good thing if it motivates you to do productive things, but if it's just bringing you down, the point of a hobby is to have fun.
He did. I will say, I saw some of the stuff that he was angry at. He had reason to be angry.
He did.
It's just
he did.
At some point, you have to be able to stop and just take a breath and enjoy.
Yeah.
A video where we're hearing from a tale from an old orc about the story of the heroes who are serving their god badass. I mean, that
was pretty funny.
Just go, yes, that is hilarious. I am here for that.
Look up the animated trailer for OrcQuest, and it goes back and forth. You have like animated characters running around, like smashing like life-size like miniatures of their enemies and knocking them down, and just really weird stuff. Jumping off their bases.
That was actually the Kickstarter video.
Okay, that was fun.
That was the thing to get you to back the video, to get back the project. I'm like,
they almost
yes, I'm backing this.
Yeah, well, and they look like to me World of Warcraft orcs, but that's fine too.
That was one of the most annoying things about trying to proxy special characters. Was there's like three there's like at least three kind of major visual models for what orcs look like.
Well, I know
World of Warcraft type. There's the
GW type.
Reaper Bones has its own. Yeah, the giant body, tiny head.
Reaper has some different they've got some variety.
They do now.
Yeah.
But 3 or
Their
4
older
years
ones.
ago.
Their older ones were, I think, somewhat GW-like, although not quite exactly the same.
Yeah.
But a lot of commonality.
My view of what orcs are is shaped largely by the first Warcraft game. And I know that Peter Jackson is just an interpretation of Tolkien and not Tolkien himself. But I actually like the fact that in those movies, all the orcs are like unique. Like you get just some of them look like zombies, some of them look like humans with like just different colored skin, and some of them look like, trolls or pigs, or I mean, you just have like everything in between.
Ones in The Hobbit just look bad.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
my thing about the orc being separate from a goblin, because that's the thing in Tolkien's
they
world,
were the same.
Blended.
They were literally, it was 2 words for the same creature.
Yeah, they were derived from different languages.
Goblins
but because
and
of because of my initial bad experience with D&D, and then HeroQuest being brought over from England and getting a chance to play that, and seeing the map icon, which is kind of this sort of dumb looking.
I made that my avatar.
Yeah, well,
I resemble that comment.
My notion of what an orc is basically they aren't very bright. They're kind of they're kind of brutally direct. I mean, I basically think of it as the sort of brutal directness you get from the Klingon Empire. But Klingons are pretty intelligent. These guys, not so much. But they're just happy and smash things. And I mean the notion of Ye Olde Inn being basically full of a bunch of drunken orcs smashing mugs and you're gonna pay for
I just that icon suggests so much to me. Just that orc face, because he just looks like he's got the biggest, broadest smile in the world, because he just loves fighting and slaughtering.
This is fun.
He loves to be bad. And it looks
and
like
not
this
even
game
just bad.
is going
It's
for
just
that.
he just loves to be, he just loves to be an orc.
Yeah.
He's happy to be an orc. He doesn't have to be the smartest guy in the room. Yeah. Let other people talk about all their book stuff, whatever. I got something here to smash.
But you do have orc sorcerers, so they're not all just lugs.
Well, there are humans that are smarter than other humans. Why not orcs that are smarter than other orcs? And of course, magic can come from multiple sources. So an orc sorcerer might essentially be more of a shaman.
Yep. And I think Tolkien said something along the lines of, there's plenty of humans that act more orc-like than even orcs sometimes. So
yes,
there's that too.
Anyway, starting a new topic, and we should be winding it up here.
Yeah. Can I just say, looking at as I'm going through the Mage of the Mirror book again, Queen Terelia must have the worst guards of any royal court in the entire HeroQuest world.
Yes.
How many people have been kidnapped or captured?
Well, it's a civil war. I mean,
I figured that that the Queen's guards in the palace are about as effective as the mushroom guards in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, they wear
diapers. Although
tell you
that's an entirely separate subject. So that princess seems to get kidnapped an awful lot. I got my suspicions.
Yeah, this is like watching Donnie Darko and spinning theories about the Smurfs. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Well,
and the overwhelming goodness of the Smurf way of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I will see you all later. I'm going to go and get smurfed.
All right. Smurferific. Okay, well, everybody have a great night on the RantCast. And next time we get StrangeBus back in here, we'll be talking some games, and we'll probably get his take on all this stuff. And yes, OrcQuest, it's a little bit naughty in some areas. So the 14 plus to me actually is a thing. It's not just pointy swords, as it is in so many other games.
Smurferific.
All right, Smurferific. Okay, la 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 la. Everybody have a great night. And we'll see if there's somebody that we can raid. Maybe not.